This is Trial Transcripts Exposed by Crime in Court with Heather. Raw courtroom reads with my commentary. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Crime in Court with Heather. This is Trial Transcripts Exposed. We are continuing on with the Menendez case. And if you tuned in for last time, it was just lots of arguments between the attorneys and no jury was in. So they argued over what can come in for cross-examination for Erik Menendez, who is on the stand, but he's currently still sworn in, but they're going to take a break from him because due to scheduling or whatever, they have to get this other witness on the stand. So there's going to be a really short interjection of Erik's testimony where we're going to hear from his neighbor Josh Crum. So let's just get started with that. Okay. So this is the start of a new day in court. It is Monday, December 18th, 1995. And the court says, okay, we have the defendants in court with their lawyers. The people are here. The jury is here. We are ready to resume with the trial. The people filed a memorandum this morning dealing with the scope of the cross-examination, addressing subjects that we had discussed Friday. The defense indicated it had some materials to file as well today. I haven't received anything. Ms. Abramson says, no, it'll be after lunch, Your Honor. We needed to check some page sites, so it has to be amended at lunchtime, and you will have it after lunch. The court says, in regards to the subjects addressed in the People's Memorandum file today, all of those are issues that might arise during cross-examination. However, we've had delays in the cross-examination and delays in the examination of the witness, and I want to proceed with the examination at this time. So, what I propose to do is to begin again with the cross-examination with instructions to the prosecution not to bring up those areas that are covered in your memorandum until we have time to address them. Mr. Gessler for Lyle says, Your Honor, we would also have this morning Josh Crum, a witness on vacation from school that we would ask permission to put out of order. His testimony, I believe, will be brief. The court says, yes, I recall that from Friday's discussions. So we'll do that, and then the prosecution can prepare itself for the examination and cross-examination of the defendant without reference to those materials contained in the brief filed this morning until we have a chance to discuss them. Okay, are we ready with Mr. Crum? Mr. Gessler says, yes, we are, Your Honor. Court says, let's have the jury out, please. The jury enters the courtroom and the following proceedings are held. All right, the court says, okay, we again have a quorum of all jurors here at this point, so we're ready to resume with the trial. Good morning to you all, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all feeling well and ready to go. And we'll take a break for a short time from the cross-examination of the defendant, Erik Menendez, to pick up with some testimony of another witness whose schedule won't permit him to testify later on in the trial. And so we'll have him testify now. It'll be fairly brief testimony. The defense may call that witness at this time. Mr. Gessler says, Your Honor, thank you, Your Honor. The defense calls Josh Crum. Court says, stay behind the court reporter over here, go over this way, come over here, stand behind this lady right here, and raise your right hand and face this lady. Josh Ivan Crum was called as a witness by the defense. He was sworn in and testifies as follows. The clerk says, you do solemnly swear that the test... Okay, we don't need to hear the whole blah, blah, blah. He's sworn in. Okay. The witness says, the court says, and spell your full name for us, and he does. All right, Mr. Gessler, direct examination begins. Mr. Crum, how old are you now, sir? 19. Remember, this is 1995. The crimes happened in 89. So some years have gone by. Okay, now I want you to just slow down a little bit. Talk into the microphone. Okay. And if you talk to me as though we're having a conversation, probably everybody will be best able to hear you. Okay. Okay. And are you presently going to school, sir? Yes. Where do you go to school now? UC Santa Barbara. Now directing your attention back to August 20th of 1989. How old were you at that time? I think 13. All right. And where were you residing at that time? 718 Elm. And that is Elm Drive? Right. And what city is that in? Beverly Hills. Now, during that evening at some time, were you watching a movie with your mother? Yeah. And where were you when you were watching that movie? We were in my mom's bedroom. I believe the parents testified in the first trial, if I'm not mistaken. I think the parents, at least one, if not both of them, testified about this evening. Why they're calling the kid who was 13 at the time, not really sure why. And we were in my mom's bedroom, he says. And now, could you perhaps, you've seen this exhibit, Exhibit 1, that we looked at earlier this morning? Yes. And looking at the picture here that is called Exhibit 1A, could you just step down for a minute and point on that exhibit what portion of your house that is shown in it? This is 1A here, the first one. Okay, well, this portion right here, he says. And are you indicating then the portion of the house that is on the far right side of the picture as you look at it? Yes. Now, looking down at 1C, this picture here, is that a little better picture that shows where your house was located? Right. Could you point that out for us, please? This house. And he points. So you're indicating the house that is at the very top? Right. Now, is there some place on that house that shows the room in which you and your mother were watching the television? Yes, it's right there. And he points. All right. Now, the window right here, is that the room to the window to the room where you were? Right, exactly. All right. Hang on to that for just a minute and let me see if I can get a marker here. Would you mark that with this black marker, just an X by the window that you just pointed to? Okay. Now you've marked an X on 1C to show where the window is. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. You can resume your seat. As you were watching the movie, did you hear any sound that you felt were unusual? Yes, I heard a series of popping noises. Could you describe what they sounded like? Just like tat 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 tat, like that. Would you describe them as being fairly rapid, an interval between them? How would you describe that? Fairly rapid, and I didn't recall any gap in sequence. They were just pretty consistent and then they stopped. Do you remember approximately how many noises like that you had heard? Around 5 or 6. All right. And did you take any action in regard to that after you heard these sounds? Well, I was about to pick up the phone, and then my mother persuaded me not to call the police. What were you going to do on the phone? Call the police. And your mother said, what did she say? Well, she said that I didn't know everything and that I shouldn't just call the police. I'm not no expert in guns, therefore I shouldn't alarm the police to something that probably wouldn't ever be anything important. Boy, was she wrong. Had you ever heard guns fired? Well, yeah, I've been to camps and I've fired a rifle, but now could you tell what direction these sounds were coming from? Well, I assumed they were coming from the north side because north or east because the window is faced on the northeastern side of the house. So, was the window open at that night? Right, yes. Do you know approximately what time you heard these sounds? It had to have been from around 10 to 10:15 or so because we were watching a documentary. Was that about the Korean airliner or something like that? Right, right. It was boring, so I left after 10 minutes. So, thank you very much, says Mr. Gessler. The court says any cross examination. Ms. Nahara says yes, Your Honor. So, she will be doing the cross for the state. All right. So, Ms. Nahara says, good morning, Mr. Crom. Good morning. Now, you were telling us that you heard a series of maybe 5 or 6 pops. Is that right? Right. And is it true that you had heard something about this case before coming to court today? Yeah. Had you heard about a reload or more shots? Objection with respect to, says Mr. Levin, and Mr. Gessler also says objection hearsay beyond the scope. The court says it's not beyond the scope. Mr. Gessler says it is hearsay. Mr. Levin says it also assumes facts, not in evidence. She said shots. The court says objection sustained to the form of the question. Ms. Nahara says, did you hear that somewhere there had been a reload and another shot fired? Objection, Your Honor, hearsay. Well, it really is irrelevant if he heard it or not, so objection sustained. Ms. Nahara says, did you hear, after you heard the series of pops, did you hear any pause and another shot? Not to my knowledge, no. So the best that you can tell us is that you heard 5 or 6 shots and that's all. So if there was anything before that or after that, you didn't hear it? No, I don't believe I did. And, whoa, that was my dog. He's stretching and getting belly rubs as he's napping on my lap. Sorry. So to the best that you can tell us, is that you heard 5 or 6 shots and that's all. So if there was anything before that or after that, you didn't hear it. No, I don't believe I did. And had you ever heard shots fired in that neighborhood before? No, never. And have you heard shots fired in that neighborhood since? No, I don't believe so. When you heard these shots, did you look out that window? Well, there was some degree. I thought maybe they might have been fireworks, but I didn't think they were fireworks. My mom did. So I looked outside to look in the sky and see if there were fireworks or something, and I didn't see smoke or whatever comes after a firework, so I deduced that they weren't fireworks. This kid's 19, and he was 13 at the time. He's talking like he's a friggin' expert adult witness or something. I don't know. He seems like I deduced that they weren't fireworks. When you first heard shots, did you think that they might be fireworks and that's why you looked outside at the sky? Well, I think the first thing that was in my mind was that they were gunshots, and then thinking about it realistically, I mean, who hears gunshots, where I live. So I just went to the window to look and there were no fireworks. And then as you testified, you were going to call the police, is that right? Right. Now, is it fair to say that that had you spoken to the police that night, you would have told them that you heard shots coming from the north, right? Right. Objection calls for speculation. He didn't speak with the police. Overruled. And with regards to, is it fair to say that you couldn't have told the police that you heard shots coming from 722 North Elm? No. So you couldn't have identified the precise location, but you knew they were coming from somewhere in the area. And is it fair to say that the best you could have told the police that night was that there were, I believe, 4 or 5 houses to the north? Is that right? The 722 Elm? I mean, north of you, where the sounds were coming from? Right. Well, it could have been any of the next 4 houses north of me, so. And could it also have been some of the houses to the east of you? Probably, yeah. And how many houses does that encompass? Well, it would encompass, I guess, the next 4 to the east and north of me, so it's another 4 houses or so. So it's about 8 houses right. You could have said it came from in that direction, and it could possibly have been any of those 8 houses? Right. I have nothing further. He's also 13, and his mother told him not to call, so it's not his fault that he didn't call. Mr. Gessler says, no redirect, Your Honor. May the witness be excused. The court says, yes, that's it. Thank you. All right, we will now resume with the cross-examination of defendant Erik Menendez. All right, so Erik is called as a witness, and the following was testified to. The court says, I will remind you, you are still under oath. The witness says, yes, sir. Mr. Khan, says the court. Mr. Khan says, thank you. Mr. Menendez, you did a lot of crying on direct examination, didn't you? I don't know what you mean by a lot of crying. Well, you cried, didn't you? Yes. And you understand that tears can have an impact upon people, don't you? Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation. Overruled. He's trying to make it seem like he's just trying to get sympathy from the jury. What a jerk. That you can't do that. The witness says, um, I think that pain has an impact on people, I suppose. I really don't know. I never really thought about it. Well, no one can see your pain. They can only see your tears. Is that correct, Mr. Menendez? Objection, Your Honor, to the form of the question, and it also calls for speculation what other people can see. As stated, it is argumentative, says the court. Mr. Khan says, what impact do you think that tears had on the average person, Mr. Menendez? Objection, argumentative. Overruled. The witness says, I don't know. Mr. Khan says, you have no idea that tears can influence people? If you're asking if I cried on purpose or if I tried to cry, I was actually doing just the opposite. Wow. So he was trying his hardest not to cry. That kind of, uh, yeah, interesting, right? So he could tell that that's what the attorney was trying to insinuate. So he just gets in front of it, and that's a great way to be a witness. If you think that an attorney is trying to insinuate something with their questions about you, you just flat out say, no, actually, that's not true. If you're trying to imply that. Mr. Levin says, objection, Your Honor. The witness should be allowed to answer the question because I guess he cuts him off. The court says his answer wasn't responsive to the question, so ask the next question, please. How is it not responsive? Mr. Khan says, yes. The question I am asking you, Mr. Menendez, is do you think that crying in front of the jury has the potential of gaining sympathy from the right kind of juror? I don't know how to answer the question. I don't know. I mean, it never occurred to you that if you cried in front of the jury, you might gain some sympathy from them? Well, it's certainly not something that I was trying to do. I was actually asked by counsel to talk as little about the molestation as possible. It's not something I want to go into. It's not something I want to talk about. And whether my pain is expressed through tears, it doesn't make it any more real or any less real. There were times when I described it when I didn't cry, actually more painful incidents, what overwhelms me at the time. It's not something that I control. The molestation is not something that you want to talk about? No. But you have no hesitation telling the world about it if you think that it might get you your goal of manslaughter. Is that correct? Objection, argumentative, and overruled. I think that is kind of argumentative, but whatever. The witness says there was a great deal of hesitation. It took my brother many years of therapy to even get to the point where he would discuss it with people, and this is not something that I want to speak about. My grandmother is in the courtroom. My relatives know what is happening, and this is not something that I enjoy talking about or enjoy discussing about my family. Whether or not you enjoy it, you're certainly willing to tell it if you think that it's going to get you closer to your goal of a manslaughter in this case. Is that correct, Mr. Menendez? I'm presented with a trial in which I am facing the death penalty, and I don't feel I really have a choice but to tell what happened at this point. Do you use tears to manipulate people? No. Have you ever done so? No. You cried when you spoke to the police on the night of the killings, didn't you? Yes. And Sergeant Edmonds let you leave the police station without even giving you a gunshot residue test. Is that correct? I don't think it had anything to do with my tears. I was crying when I asked him if my parents were dead, not when I was going through what I did that night. My question is just, did Sergeant Edmonds let you leave the police station without giving you a gunshot residue test? Yes. And would you say you were successful in gaining the sympathy of Sergeant Edmonds that night? I never thought about that. You were trying to deceive him, weren't you? I didn't want to tell him that I was responsible. But you were trying to deceive him into believing that you had nothing to do with the killings, didn't you? Yes. And did you feel that the tears that you used may have helped you in deceiving him? I cried for one sentence at the end of the interview. I don't think it had anything to do with him feeling sorry for me. He was a kind man, and my parents had just died. He's naturally going to feel sympathy for me. So you didn't feel that the tears were influential at all? No. You want to gain the sympathy of this jury, don't you, Mr. Menendez? I am not here to gain sympathy, Mr. Khan. I am here to tell what happened because I have no choice but to be here and tell what happened. That's a pretty honest answer. Did you conclude, as a result of your experience with Sergeant Edmonds, that it might be beneficial to turn on some tears in front of this jury? The court says, let's hold on. There's a brief pause. The court says, why don't we have one of the bailiffs go there and see if she needs a little longer, or we can take a break here and see if she needs more time. I don't want to rush her. If she needs some time, we will take a break. Okay, she is still coughing. Let's take a recess right now and we will resume in hopefully 20 minutes. You may step down. Let's take a short break and I will talk to counsel about some matters that we can perhaps discuss. So a recess was taken. The jury left the room. The court says, okay, let's resume with the cross-examination. We're back. Please resume the witness stand. We'll have the jury out, please. The jury enters. The court says, okay, you may continue your cross-examination. Mr. Khan says, thank you. Did you conclude, Mr. Menendez, as a result of your experience with Sergeant Edmonds, that it might be beneficial for you to turn on tears in front of this jury? No. When Lyle Menendez called 911 on August the 20th of 1989, did you know that you were screaming loud enough for your voice to be recorded? I didn't know when he was on the phone. Did you want your screaming and your crying to be heard by the police that evening? I didn't think about it. Did you want Lyle Menendez to cry when he called the police that evening? I wasn't with him when he called. I know he was going to before he ran up the stairs, but I didn't think it would. I never thought it wasn't a concern. I didn't think it would matter. You didn't think it mattered how he conducted himself when he called the police that evening? We just wanted the police to come over. How he called or whether he called 911 and what he said, I didn't think was important. Well, weren't you trying to trick the police that evening and cause them to conclude that you had nothing to do with the killings? Certainly by that time, I did not want them to know. And to achieve that goal, you went through considerable efforts prior to calling the police to ensure that you would not be suspects. Is that correct? Objection, Your Honor, with respect to considerable efforts as vague. The court says overruled. The witness says, you mean trying to get tickets and getting rid of the guns and so on? Correct. Yes. And that it was all designed to fool the police into thinking that you had nothing to do with the crime. Isn't that correct? At that point, we wanted them not to think we had anything to do with it. Yes. And as you were driving around with your brother in the car, did you ever say to him, by the way, when you call the police, how are you going to sound? And are you going to be happy and cheerful, or are you going to be crying and make it sound more believable? We weren't in the frame of mind to think of these things. We were just doing the basic things of trying to get some tickets so that we could try to show where we were at a theater and try to get rid of the guns. You said you were not in the frame of mind to do what things? To think that far ahead on whether it's going to make a difference on a 911 call how you act in front of the police. I just didn't think that far ahead. You thought far enough ahead to get theater tickets that you could possibly use as an alibi, didn't you? These were just, they were coming up and we were doing them. We were coming up with a better suggestion and we would do that. And you thought far enough ahead to change your clothes and get rid of any bloody clothing, didn't you? I didn't. I saw spots on my jeans and I said, I better take these off and get rid of them. And that's what we did. And you thought far enough ahead to pick up all of the gunshot shells, didn't you? These things were happening. As someone would bring it up, we do it. As someone would bring it up, we would do it. They weren't thinking ahead of time and saying, maybe we should do this, we should do it, and do it. And you thought far enough ahead to dump the weapons that you used to kill your parents. Isn't that correct? I don't know what you mean by far enough ahead, but certainly afterwards we wanted to do that, yes. And you're telling us you didn't think far enough ahead to talk to your brother about whether or not he was going to cry when he called the police. Objection argumentative, Your Honor. Overruled. I never saw the point in what it would matter what his demeanor was when he told the police that we found our parents. I still don't understand the importance of it, and I don't think it made a difference to me. It didn't even cross my mind to think about it. So you're saying you didn't think of the importance of sounding shocked and horrified upon the discovery of your parents' bodies? When I was in the car going back to the house, just these things didn't occur to me. And the object was to get the police there. I didn't think that the police would automatically think we were a suspect. I thought we might very well be arrested that night, but I wasn't thinking, Lyle, you better put on a good show or something like that. It wasn't happening. And I don't think that's what happened. Now, you listened to the 911 recording when it was being played in court, didn't you? Yes. And on that recording, both you and your brother are very emotional at the time that the call is made. Is that correct? Yes. Now, you weren't emotional when you got out of the car at the movie theater and stood in line to purchase theater tickets, were you? You mean, was I crying at the time? Yeah. No. You weren't emotional and crying when you got out of the car at the gas station and dumped clothing and ammunition into the dumpster, were you? I'm not sure. If it happened after we arrived at the Civic Center, I was. If it happened before, I wasn't. So you weren't emotional and crying the whole time as you were driving around with your brother for an hour and a half putting together this alibi of yours, were you? No, that's correct. It's because I was breaking down that we decided that we couldn't meet Perry that night because we were looking too distraught and he would figure that something had happened. That's the reason we went home. And then when you got home, you became very emotional and you were crying just when your brother called the police and got them on the line. Is that correct? No, I got overly emotional when I realized and saw my parents and saw that there were no guns in the room and saw that the sight that horrified me. And that's when I completely lost control. My brother ran up the stairs, and I didn't know which 30 seconds for which 15 seconds he was calling the police. At that point, it wasn't on my mind. You weren't emotional right after the shooting when you turned on the lights and began to pick up the shotgun shells. Is that correct? You mean, was I crying? Is that what you mean by emotional? Yes. No. Lyle Menendez was not crying as you were picking up the shotgun shells. Is that correct? I don't remember. You don't need to be. I don't know what his point is. And you weren't talking or having any conversation at that time, were you? No. Well, you do cry when you get in front of a jury, don't you, Mr. Menendez? Objection, Your Honor. It's argumentative. As phrased, it's argumentative, says the court. Sustained. Mr. Khan says, you cried in front of the last jury when you testified in the first trial, didn't you? Normally, when I talk about the painful things that happened to me between my father and I cry. It's just something that I cannot control. Okay, I just want to pause for a second and say Erik is holding his own so well, and he's seeing through this attorney who's trying to catch him in all this. Like, not even stuff that even makes sense, but he's trying to say like he's not emotional or something, and it wasn't an emotional state, that it was, I guess, premeditated and all of this other stuff that they were doing to cover up their crimes, like throwing the guns over Mulholland Drive, or trying to go meet Perry Berman that night or get the Batman tickets. All of these things are they were premeditated according to this the prosecutor. He's trying to say like all of these things were premeditated, but yet they didn't they fail to do so many other things that they could have done that night too. If they were planning this ahead, they could have done some things much differently. So for their argument that these things were all planned ahead doesn't quite jive, I think, with the case, with the facts. Anyways, Mr. Khan says, you cried in front of the last jury when you testified in the first trial, didn't you? And he says, normally when people talk about painful things, that's what happens. That happened to me between my father and I cry. It's just something I cannot control. Was there something about the sight of a jury sitting in judgment of you that brings tears to your eyes, Mr. Menendez? I would have objected to that. No. A jury sitting in front of me scares me. It doesn't bring tears to my eyes. And what are you afraid of, Mr. Menendez? Objection, Your Honor. The witness has not completed his answer. Sustained. You may finish answering the question. It's just talking about the sex between my dad and that I find very painful to talk about. Just the sex? Sometimes when I talk about my parents, it's painful as well, but yes. The tears that you were shedding, Mr. Menendez, are they tears for yourself or tears for your dead parents? It's grief, it's sadness, it's regret, and it's. Did you shed one tear for your mother before you shot her to death on August the 20th of 1989? In that rushed state, I don't know. No. Did you shed one tear for your father before you shot him to death on August the 20th of 1989? I don't know what you mean by that question. You mean at the top of the stairs when I thought they were going to kill us? That's correct. No, my brain was going crazy. I wasn't thinking about it. And you didn't feel any sorrow about the prospect of shooting your parents to death at that time, did you? I thought they were going to kill us. I thought I was going to die, and you were going to shoot them to death, is that correct? All I know is that I had to get to that room before they came out, or I was going to die. This is the only thing that I was thinking. I look back on it now, and I can say perhaps this or perhaps that, but at the time, I was just reacting. I mean, I wasn't consciously making choices. But my question to you is, did you shed one tear as you were going towards that room to shoot your parents to death? No. Now, did you see your brother Lyle Menendez crying in court while you were crying during your testimony? I'm sure that he was. You didn't notice? I didn't notice. At any time before you testified, did you discuss with your brother that if he were to cry at the same time you cried, perhaps it would it'd be even more effective than just one person crying at a time? This is the most ridiculous argument. And the funny thing is, none of us would have even known that Lyle was crying during Erik's testimony unless he brought this question up. Nobody would have known that. I didn't know, but now it's forever in the record that Lyle was crying, and this idiotic attorney is trying to blame them somehow to say they planned this cry together so that they could gain more sympathy from the jury, which I don't think this should be coming in because I do think this is argument, but this judge just doesn't care. And the witness says, no, it's objection hearsay, Your Honor, says Mr. Levin. Overruled, says the court. He's just going to let it all in. The witness says, it's the type of thing when he sees me hurt. It's painful for me in the last trial when he was up here and talking about the things that his dad did to Lyle. I was crying. I couldn't help but cry because it's painful to see him in pain. And it's painful for me to think about these things. I am not a person who could just decide I want to cry right now. I'm not capable of that. I'm not sure anyone is. That's my dog crying. Sure you can hear that. Sorry. I'm petting him, trying to calm him down. He's growling now. Okay. Mr. Khan says, so his tears were not part of the plan to influence the jury. Is that correct, Mr. Menendez? Objection with respect to what tears? Rephrase the question, says the court. Mr. Khan says, yes. Are you telling us that the tears of Lyle Menendez was not part of a plan to influence this jury? Objection. He's never testified he's seen any tears in this trial. Court says, rephrase the question. You did not discuss with your brother at any time whether you should cry on the witness stand or whether he should cry while he's listening to you? What a ridiculous argument. No, says the witness. Is it your goal to influence this jury, Mr. Menendez? I just want people to understand why I did this. I don't completely understand it, but I just want people to understand because I know my life is on the line. And if no one understands, I will spend the rest of my life in jail. And that's a phrase you want to keep on reiterating, don't you, Mr. Menendez, to influence this jury. This jury will decide what I am convicted of. I don't know how to answer that question. I am trying to answer it as best and as truthfully as I can. My question, Mr. Menendez, is how many times have you told this jury in response to a question from me that you're going to spend the rest of your life in jail? Objection, Your Honor. It's argumentative. Counsel is asking the questions. The court says, let's not argue. Your objection is argumentative? Yes. Overruled. You may answer the question. The witness says, I don't remember. Mr. Khan says, is that because you want to keep getting that notion in front of the jury so they will have sympathy for you? No. I think they understand. I think the judge has said it many times. I am just trying to answer your question about when you were asking me why I don't want to be convicted of murder, and I am telling you why, and I don't think it's my job to influence a jury one way or the other. It's simply to tell what happened in my life. Great answer. This jury they got it wrong, I'll say, but they also had the judge and the prosecution in cahoots trying to get a conviction together. So that's the problem. Are you planning on crying during the cross examination, Mr. Menendez? Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation. The question can't be answered. Overruled. The witness says, depends upon what we talk about, I suppose. Mr. Khan says, now, do you think your demeanor on the witness stand plays an important role in persuading the jury of your position, Mr. Menendez? Objection, Your Honor. Calls for conclusion. This is wild that he's able to ask all these questions. Mr. Levin says, objection, Your Honor. Calls for a conclusion. The court says, goes to the state of mind. Overruled. The witness says, it's a difficult question to answer. I had not thought about that before. I suppose the answer is how they view me in court and them learning about who I am as a person. I would think that would be important. Did you give any thought to your demeanor before testifying? How do you mean? Did you ever think, should I smile? Should I cry? Should I look sad? How should I behave when I answer a particular way? Did you give issues such as that some thought before you took the witness stand? No. I smile when I'm happy. I sometimes look when I'm in pain or when I'm frustrated. I just do what I do every day. He's just acting naturally. And you gave no thought to your demeanor before testifying before this jury. Is that correct, Mr. Menendez? I don't know what you mean by thought. Do you mean, am I trying not to smile? Are you trying to convey a particular image to this jury, Mr. Menendez? I don't think so. Are your facial expressions or signs of emotion matters that you consider before you testify, Mr. Menendez? I think that being in the courtroom with the jury for 3 or 4 months, they get to know me and who I am, and I think that it would be impossible to try to portray myself as someone that I am not. Is your choice of language something that you've carefully considered before you testified? I'm not a very eloquent person. I don't have a great vocabulary. Actually, I think that is incorrect. I think both Lyle and Erik in their testimony on the stand had excellent vocabularies. He says, I try to express myself through words, though, yes. My question is your choice of language something that you carefully considered before you testified? Mr. Levin says, objection, it's vague, Your Honor. The witness says no. The court says, overruled. The answer will stand. Mr. Khan says, to prepare for your testimony, did you review video recordings of the first testimony from your trial? Of my testimony? Yes. No. Not at all? I reviewed my brother's. Why did you review your brother's testimony? Because I knew the difficulties Lyle was having, and there's a lot of torment and confliction, and I wanted to review his testimony to know whether certain incidences I remembered or didn't. I knew that I would be testifying first, and Barry or Mr. Levin asked me to do it, and I did it. You said you reviewed your brother's testimony because of difficulties he was having. What do you mean by that? When he got off the stand last trial, I was with my grandmother and myself, and we cried, and I knew that he never wanted to do it again, and that it was one of the worst things that we'll probably ever go through, and so I wasn't sure if he would do it again, and Mr. Levin asked me to review the testimony to see if there were things that I remember in his testimony, and so I did it. I could have read the transcripts, but I'm a very slow reader, and it was just easier to watch. So you reviewed his testimony to refresh your recollection about certain things? I don't think it has anything to do with my refreshing my recollection. My brother was 5 when I was 2 and 8 when I was 5, and so he has a better memory of my early life and certain things that happened to him. And so I watched it to see if incidences that he had remembered, I also had remembered. Some I had, some I hadn't. You wanted to minimize inconsistencies between your testimony and the testimony of your brother. Is that correct? I really don't care if there are inconsistencies as long as I tell the truth. My memory is different than his on several areas, and I don't care about that. My memories he's an excellent witness so far. Like, this attorney is trying to really shake him, trying to really make him look like this bad guy. And everything he says, he's just like, "No, I'm just trying to tell the truth. No, my face is just normal. It smiles when I'm happy and it makes sad faces when I'm sad. My face is normal." Like, he's just answering the questions like a normal person would. And these insinuations by the prosecution, I think, are ridiculous. I really don't care if there are inconsistencies as long as I tell my truth. My memory is different than his on several areas, and I don't care about that. Well, did you meet with mental health experts before you testified today? I didn't. I've been in therapy for 6 years. I've been meeting with other. Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, objection with respect to this line of questioning calls for privileged answers. Overruled. The witness says, Mr. Khan says, which mental health experts have you met with? Dr. Vickery, who is my therapist, he testified in the first trial, and I think he's testifying in this trial as well. Dr. Koonsman, who is in charge of the jail psychiatry, Dr. Wilson, Dr. Ann Burgess, and Dr. Ann Tyler. That's supposed to be Tyler, and Dr. John Conti and Dr. Stuart Hart. Many of them also testified in the first trial. How much time did you spend with Mr. Wilson? Many hours. 50 hours? A lot of hours. Did you ever take acting lessons with Mr. Menendez? Acting lessons? Yes. No. Did you study acting in school? I took a year of theater in high school. And did you tell us that you wanted to study theater in college? I enjoy the arts, and there's nothing more fun than that. My question was, did you tell us that you wanted to study theater in college? I did, yes. And did you consider having a career in acting? I thought it would be fun. I meant stage acting, but I couldn't really think of that as a serious career. My father would laugh, and so I didn't seriously think about that. Did you tell Detective Zoller that your mother thought you were a good actor? She saw me in a play once and thought I was good. And did you tell Craig Signorelli that you were considering a career in acting? I told Craig Signorelli that I was considering. Mr. Levin says, Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, objection with respect to any testimony regarding Craig Signorelli. Overruled. The witness is in the process of answering the question. The witness, is that a reason to overrule it? Because he's already in the process of answering it? Judge, no, you object before the witness answers it so that you cut the question off if it's not appropriate. The witness says, a career in tennis, in real estate. I told him that maybe one day I would go into acting. I told him that I wanted to work in a lot of charity. I told him all types of different things. I didn't tell him that I wanted to go into a specific line or specifically at that point where I was playing tennis. Mr. Khan says, Mr. Menendez. Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, we request to approach at this time. The court says, on this subject, request is denied. He's done that several times throughout this trial and the other trial. He denied court or denied counsel coming to the bench, having a sidebar, which didn't know judges could do that, but he did many times. Mr. Khan says, Mr. Menendez, I am not asking if you told Craig Signorelli about your interest in real estate or tennis. I am asking if you ever told Craig Signorelli that you were considering a career in acting. I told him that it was one of the things that I was considering doing. And what is it that you like about acting? I enjoy the liberty of, I never enjoyed business, economics, mathematics, and that line of work. And a lot of actors are free spirits. And when I took the year in drama, I was really fascinated by it. And that's a hard question to answer. I am not even sure. I just know that type of, I don't know. You just like pretending? Objection, Your Honor. The witness says, I don't think it's about pretending. I think that Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, objection with respect to pretending. It's argumentative. Overruled. Again, with the overruled. He's overruling all of these. It's on the subject of acting that the questions have been covering here. Overruled. The witness says, I don't think that it's pretending. I think that I really don't know how to answer the question. I am really not sure why I enjoy the theater so much. I can't answer that. Well, what made you think that you could be a convincing actor? Objection, Your Honor. It assumes facts, not an evidence. It also is irrelevant at this point. Overruled. Somebody keep track of how many overruled we've got so far, because this is crazy. The witness says, my drama teacher thought that I had a good stage voice and that it was deep, even when I was 17, 16. And so that's why she was saying that I should go into stage acting. I wasn't a particularly good actor. I didn't get into the main Beverly Hills acting school. I failed at that, but I suppose I enjoyed it more than the other possibilities it was history, philosophy, or theater of what I wanted to do. But at least you felt good enough that you could consider a career in acting. Is that correct? Well, I could consider a career in anything. What I enjoyed is what I wanted to do most. Now, you told this jury that you were 18 years old when you graduated and that you were 18 years old when you killed your parents and that you are now 25. Is that correct? I am. And are you trying to emphasize your youthful age, Mr. Menendez? Objection, Your Honor. It's argumentative. Where is that even coming from? I was just answering the questions. Overruled. The answer will stand, says the court. The witness says, I was just answering the questions that he asked me. He asked me all sorts of questions I had no idea he was going to ask. Are you trying to portray yourself as a child, Mr. Menendez? I don't think that I am a child anymore. You weren't a child when you killed your parents, were you? Objection, Your Honor. The witness has not completed his answer. Let him finish his answer, says the court. The witness says 6 years in jail is a difficult thing, and it matures a person, and so does being around the realities of the situation made me grow up quick. Mr. Khan says, you weren't a child when you shot your mother and father to death, were you, Mr. Menendez? I don't think that I was a child. And is it part of the strategy of the defense to portray you as a helpless child, Mr. Menendez? Objection, Your Honor. It's argumentative. Sustained. Finally, we got a sustain there. Do you feel that the jury might have more sympathy for you if you emphasize your age, Mr. Menendez? Objection calls for a conclusion, Your Honor. It's also speculation. Overruled, overruled. The witness says, what the jury has sympathy for should not be my concern. These are 17 people I have never met before, and I don't know what they find sympathy in and what they don't. I am here because I have to tell what happened in my life, and that's not my concern when I'm on the stand. What's in Mr. Levin's mind? I don't know. Mr. Khan says, and you do feel that at the age of 18, you were fully responsible for your actions on August 20th, 1989, don't you, Mr. Menendez? I am fully responsible. And you should be held fully accountable for your actions on that day, regardless of the consequence, don't you, Mr. Menendez? I should be. Now, you told us that you had been in jail since 1990, is that correct? Yes. And did you tell the jury that so that they would have sympathy for you? Are we still going down this line of questioning? No, I don't know specifically why. I just assume that the chronology that I was free for 6 months before I was arrested is somehow important to the case. You told us that you have an auditory processing problem, dyslexia, and a hearing problem. Is that correct? Yes. Do those conditions have any bearing upon the degree of your responsibility in this case? Objection, Your Honor. It's argumentative. No, says the witness. Rephrase the question, says the court. Mr. Khan says, did the auditory processing problem bear upon your conduct on August the 20th of 1989? Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, that calls for a conclusion. Overruled. I think that I was just asked those questions because sometimes I either don't hear or have difficulty understanding questions that Mr. Levin was going to ask me. And so that he just wanted that out to show maybe that I am not an idiot or something like that. Well, did the auditory processing problem have any bearing upon your actions on August the 20th of 1989? No, they did not. Did the dyslexia have any bearing upon your actions on August the 20th of 1989? No. Did the hearing problem have any bearing on your actions? No. Do any of these conditions have anything to do with how or why you killed your parents on August the 20th of 1989? If they do, I don't understand how they would. Well, you told the jury that you were taking Pamelar, Indalar, and Xanax. Is that correct? I am. Does that medication have any effect on your testimony whatsoever? It allows me to be more together, less emotional when I have to discuss the things in my childhood. Other than making you less emotional, do those substances have any influence on your testimony? In terms of what? Objection, Your Honor. That would call for a medical conclusion what physical effects or emotional effects they would have. The court says overruled. Witness says, it just mellows me out and allows me to speak about things that I want to, I suppose. Mr. Khan says, you were not under any medication at the time you shot your parents to death. Is that correct? No, I was not. You were not trying to suggest in that testimony that you are now suffering from some emotional problem, were you? No. Are you suffering from any emotional problem at this time? I don't know what you mean by emotional problem. Do you feel that you are suffering from an emotional or from any mental or medical condition at this time? Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, objection with respect to that question. It's asking him to diagnose himself. Overruled. Are you kidding me? The witness says, I don't really know. I mean, I don't have any personality disorder if you are asking me. I have seen so many different doctors and there's been so many different analyses made of me that I would say, other than just depression, no, I'm fine. Mr. Khan says, were you suffering from any emotional problem at the time you shot your parents to death? Your Honor, objection with respect to that question. I don't know, says the witness. It's calling for a medical conclusion, says Levin. The court says it's asking for his opinion, overruled. The witness says, I don't think so. I don't know. Mr. Khan says, you told us that the only reason you killed your parents was because you were afraid they were going to kill you. Is that correct? That, and I was afraid my father was going to come up to my room. You are not claiming that you killed your parents as a result of any emotion other than fear. Is that correct? Right. And you did not kill your parents because of anger or hatred or any other emotion. I didn't. Was there anything unusual about your state of mind on the day of the killings other than this belief that you suggest that your parents were going to kill you? Objection with respect to unusual. It's vague. The court says, do you understand what he's talking about? The witness says, anything unusual? Was there anything else going on in the family besides this exposure over the secret? There wasn't. No, I am questioning your state of mind at the time. Do you remember your state of mind being unusual in any way on that day other than this belief? Objection, says Mr. 11. Mr. Khan says that your parents were going to kill you. I don't, says the witness. Mr. Levin says, objection with respect to unusual, it's vague. The court says, do you understand unusual? No, I guess I don't. Mr. Khan says, so we just breeze past it. We don't care. The court doesn't deal with that. Mr. Khan says, were you your normal, ordinary self on August the 20th, 1989, other than the belief in your mind that your parents were going to kill you? I certainly wasn't my normal, ordinary self. I was going through a serious crisis, and I had a serious longing to go back in time and not have gotten my brother involved in it. But in terms of was I disabled or medicated, I wasn't. Other than a longing to go back in time and being afraid of your parents, the answer is no. That you were not suffering from any unusual state of mind that day? Objection, Your Honor, with respect to unusual, vague. All right. With regard to the previous question asked of you, do you understand what he means by unusual? Yes, that I'm aware of. No. Mr. Khan says, and was there anything unusual about your behavior on the day that you killed your parents other than the fact that you killed your parents because you believed that they were going to kill you? Objection. It's vague, unusual behavior. The court says, do you understand what that means? I think I can interpret it. Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, I would ask the witness not to interpret the question. If he doesn't understand it as phrased, it should be re-asked. All right, says the court. My question again is, do you understand the question? I guess I don't. Mr. Khan says, was there anything odd or peculiar about your behavior that day, Mr. Menendez? Objection, it's vague. The witness says, I don't know. I wasn't with anyone that day. I don't know that they would have been able to tell if anything was odd or peculiar from being around me. The court says the objection is overruled to the previous question. Mr. Khan says, I am not asking you how other people might have perceived you, Mr. Menendez. I am asking you how you felt that day. Did you feel that there was anything odd or peculiar about your behavior any time that day? Behavior in terms of whatever my daily habit was? The way you were acting, the way you were behaving, was there anything unusual about your behavior? No, I don't think so. About your behavior at any time that day? Well, if I understand your question correctly, the answer would be no. So you felt that you were in your normal, everyday condition that day. Is that correct? I'm assuming you're not talking about emotionally, mentally, in terms of what was going through my head. I already asked you about your emotional condition. I am asking you about your behavior right now. Physically? Your Honor, objection with respect to behavior. It's vague. The court says, do you understand what he means by behavior? If you don't, just say, I don't. The witness says, I don't. Anything about your actions that day? Did you notice anything strange or unusual or peculiar about your actions the day you were acting? No. You were your normal self that day, is that correct? Except for the emotional objection, says Mr. Levin. Mr. Khan says, condition that you were experiencing. The witness says, I didn't have any physical disabilities or I wasn't fidgeting. I don't, if that's what you're asking. The answer is no. So the only thing strange or unusual that you noted was your emotional condition that day. Is that correct? Yes. And the only thing strange about your emotional condition was that you were fearful that your parents were going to kill you, and you, as you said, you were longing to go back in time. Is that correct? Objection, Your Honor. It's compound. Overruled. I think so, yes. Can you tell us anything about your emotional condition that day that was unusual or peculiar? I don't remember the day very well. There are hours I don't remember what I did. So as far as what I remember, the answer would be no. Did you notice anything strange or unusual about the behavior of your brother, Lyle Menendez, that day? Yes. Objection, Your Honor. It's vague with respect to strange and unusual. The court says, well, he seems to understand the question, and he answered yes. Mr. Khan says, and what was that? He was very reluctant to go into the house when I was there at midday. He was desperate to get out of the house that night. He was much more, he scared me. His reactions to things that my parents had said and his reaction that night at 10 o'clock frightened me. I hadn't seen him like that before. So, uh, how much is this solidifying the prosecution's case and how much is this solidifying the defense's case? I think it's only helping to corroborate things that the brothers have been testifying to so far. I'm not seeing real progress from the prosecution here. So he was reluctant. His brother was scaring him, so Lyle was scaring him that day. What was it about your brother that frightened you that evening, Mr. Menendez? The fact that he was so scared, the fact that his face was so drawn and how frightened he was made me think this is really going to happen, and his actions scared me. And what time did you see his face so drawn? At the top of the stairs when I was telling him that I couldn't let my father come in my room. Prior to the time you went into your home that evening to tell your parents that you were going to the movies, did you notice anything strange or unusual about your brother's behavior that day? That his nerves were on edge and he was anxious to get out of the house. He was anxious to get out of the house during the day? He didn't want to be at the house during the day. He was certainly nervous about going into the house and meeting with my parents and trying to start up a conversation. But I think you're asking about that night, and he was very anxious to get out of the house all the time. No, I'm talking about the day, during the day. Oh, no, sir, you definitely asked about the night. What was strange or unusual about his behavior during the day? Well, you told us he was anxious to get out of the house during the day, correct? Yes. Did you ask him why he wanted to get out of the house? No, I wanted him to talk to my parents. I was pretty forceful about that. Did you tell him go into the house, talk to the parents, and come back and we'll get out of the house? No, I didn't. Why not? That wasn't that wasn't what we had in mind to do that day. I didn't know. I didn't think it was going to be a short conversation with dad and say, "Hey, dad, let's have a conversation." I thought that he would have to go around them and bring up a conversation and see what their general demeanor was and how they were generally acting towards him. I guess I could have. I don't know. Other than your brother appearing to be anxious to get out of the house during the day, did you notice anything strange or peculiar about his behaviors? No. Now, you told us that you did get a lot of sleep or you did not get a lot of sleep that week. Is that correct? I didn't. And you attribute the killings of your parents to the fact that you did not get much sleep that night or that week. No. Did that have anything to do with why you killed your parents? I think Mr. Levin was simply asking that because I was exhausted that weekend and nervous. I don't think it was certainly not the reason I killed my parents. That certainly is not the reason. And on the Sunday you shot your parents to death, you were out of the house most of the day. Is that correct? Yes. Did you take a nap while you were out of the house? No, I did not. You did not feel like taking a nap? I was having difficulty sleeping. Did you try to nap? Not that I remember. And you told the jury that you were scared, is that correct? Objection vaguest at time. Excuse me, says the witness. The court says sustained. Mr. Khan says, you told the jury that you were scared as you were sitting here in the courtroom, is that correct? Yes. And is that so that they will have sympathy for you? We're back to this again. Asked and answered. Objection. He says, no, I'm just trying to be truthful in my answer. No. Are you scared that they will convict you and you will go to jail, Mr. Menendez? I'm certainly frightened that with so much testimony, things will be misunderstood. I am certainly frightened of going to jail for the rest of my life. It's to say a life altering proceeding, and I would imagine it would be frightening to anyone. Now, you have had plenty of opportunity to speak to your brother since you've been in jail, Mr. Menendez. I've been with him in jail for 6 years. We have been separated, but I see him when I go to court. And do you have a chance to speak to him every day that you go to court, don't you? Yes. You've had plenty of opportunities to discuss with your brother the allegations that you were going to be making against your parents in this case. Is that correct? I don't think we discussed that. I am asking if you had an opportunity to discuss that. Sure, we had an opportunity to talk. And in fact, when you were not incarcerated in the same location, you've had opportunities to speak to your brother over the telephone, haven't you? Rarely, but there have been gaps when I hadn't seen him for several months and we would connect through my I would call my grandmother, he would call someone else and they would put us together so we could talk. You would have people patching together telephone calls so you could speak to your brother, is that correct? Yes. And would you discuss the facts of the case? Over the phone, I wouldn't discuss the facts of the case. How often would you speak to your brother over the telephone through this patching system? Sometimes it didn't happen for many weeks. Sometimes I'd get to speak with him for 2 or 3 days. If it was difficult to arrange. You're not allowed out to the phone very often, so it's difficult for it to be on the same half hour on the same day. Sometimes Lyle's been allowed out a little bit longer, sometimes I've been allowed out a little bit longer. Oh, trying to get them to get the right time frame together. When we can arrange it to where we're out together and I haven't seen him for a while, we'll try to patch through to say hello. Between the opportunities you've had to speak with your brother over the telephone and the opportunities you have had to speak to him every time you come to court, you've had plenty of time to talk to your brother over the past 6 years, haven't you, Mr. Menendez? Yes. And you said that since you've been in custody, you have learned about the law. Is that correct? Just from what I learned in the last law or the last trial, which is where I learned most of what I know about the law. And you know the difference between murder and manslaughter? I don't know all the differences legally. I think the laws keep changing in terms of their definitions. Well, you know enough about the law to know how it impacts upon you, don't you, Mr. Menendez? I know that, yes. And you've had an opportunity to discuss the law with your brother, haven't you? Yes. And you've had an opportunity to talk about the allegations against your parents and how that could potentially impact your verdict in this case. Isn't that correct? I, Your Honor, I would object with respect to the form of the question. It's argumentative and it suggests they did. Overruled. The witness says for many years there was a struggle between my brother and I guess for 2 years, about whether we would talk about specifically the molestation and him not wanting to the extreme and going to great efforts to avoid that, and me trying to pressure him, trying to knock some sense into him, saying that this is what we have to do, and trying to get him into therapy and seeing different people so that he would feel freer. There were constant, I wouldn't say constant because I didn't see him for a while, and certainly we have discussed those things. Mr. Khan says, you said that your brother made great efforts to avoid testifying to allegations of molestation? Yes. When the time came for him to tell that story to the jury, he told it, didn't he? Objection calls for speculation. He told and overruled. The witness continues, it was difficult. And I told him that I was sorry that I pressured him into doing it and that I would never do that again. Mr. Khan says, and you have had an opportunity to discuss the allegations of molestation with your brother, haven't you? Objection, it's argumentative and suggestive that he did. The witness says, I don't enjoy. Overruled, says the court. I don't enjoy talking about those things with him, and I have never personally had a conversation with him about what he did to me when I was a child. And the things that happened with my father, we discussed that the last week in August, and I don't specifically remember any of the conversations that I have had with him where we have discussed it in detail since. I'm simply asking you if you had an opportunity to discuss this. Didn't he answer this like 15 questions ago? Yeah, we have talked, so we have had opportunity to discuss anything. Did you discuss with your brother your goal of getting manslaughter in this case? Manslaughter is not my goal. If I get convicted of manslaughter, I could get 15, 20 years. My goal is to go home. I would like to go home. My goal is, I don't think that's the word I would use. I realize that it's one of the only things that I can get, which I have, which I will eventually go home, but my goal is not manslaughter. And I wouldn't say goal, I would say your hope, your hope, the outcome that you hope for. It's not really a goal, but anyways. Isn't that what you told us last week, Mr. Menendez, that your goal in this case was to get a manslaughter? Objection, it's argumentative, Your Honor. It was the prosecution's question. Overruled, says the court. The witness says, I sign on to what they were saying in the term of my goal is to get manslaughter because I realize that it is the only sentence that I can get where I will really have a chance of going home eventually. And in all actuality, I would like to be found not guilty. I realize that's not possible, but I don't want to go to jail anymore. I have been here for a while and I don't really want to get convicted of manslaughter, but I realize that that is reality. You will have a chance to go home even with a murder conviction, won't you? With a murder conviction, I will either spend the rest of my life in jail or spend 25 years or 30 years to the rest of my life in jail. It's up to for all murder convictions. Is that what you've been told? I've been told that it's either life without or 30 years to life with a parole board deciding in 30 years whether I get out of jail or whether I remain there for the rest of my life. And so, your goal last week, when I asked you if it was your goal to get a manslaughter verdict, are you saying now that you agreed with me only because I was suggesting that to you or because you truly feel that way? I realize that it's the only real thing that that is a reality for me at this point, and so I accepted what you were saying. And so, did you discuss with your brother Lyle Menendez, how you and he can go about reaching this goal of a manslaughter? No, I leave that up to Miss Abramson and Mr. Levin. Perfect answer. This line of questioning has gone on far too long. These objections are all getting overruled, and where's it leading us? Down a rabbit hole to nothing, to nowhere. It's just a bunch of garbage questions. Anyways, did you discuss the law of manslaughter with your brother so you can put together a story in order to achieve this goal of manslaughter? I didn't know about the law of manslaughter in detail until long after I had told Ms. Abramson and Father Ken and Dr. Vickery and my grandmother everything that happened in my life. Certainly couldn't have. You didn't kill your father because he molested you, did he? Did you? I think that if it had not have happened, my father would be alive today if he didn't molest him. Are you saying that this was a retaliation killing? No. Why did you kill your father? I was afraid of more sex and I was afraid I was going to die. Did you tell the jury about the molestation to get them to hate your father? I don't want them to hate my father. Is it your intention? Objection, Your Honor, says Mr. Levin. The witness has not answered his question. Yes, complete your answer, please, says the court. The witness says, and I think that I have left most of it out. Only but the bare essentials, I hope, are needed to understand who I am as a person. Mr. Khan says, is it your intention to put your parents on trial to divert the jury away from your own responsibility for this crime? Objection, argumentative, Your Honor. The witness says, I am fully, objection sustained. Next question, please. Mr. Khan says, you didn't tell us very many good things about your father, did you? Objection, it's argumentative, overruled. The witness says, I've answered that. I was asked. Mr. Khan says, you told us that you were once going to write a book about your father, weren't you, Mr. Menendez? I wanted to, up until about 1992 or 91, write a book about my father. I was extremely impressed by him. Didn't you tell people that he was a great man? He was a tremendous man. And what was it that made him a tremendous man? He had power like I have never seen again in a human being. He had the ability, He was a mighty figure. He had an aura about him that was larger than life. He was brilliant. He was ruthless in terms of his goal and what he wanted. He was a figure that was so much larger than life, than it was almost overwhelming. And everyone that I've talked to about him said that when it comes to business, there was perhaps no one smarter, more determined, and better at finding ways of getting what he wanted. And that was, as a child, he was my dad. And was your father a good man? What do you mean by good? I'll withdraw the question. Yeah, you don't want to go there. If you want to ask questions about Jose's character, you don't want to go there because the defense can bury you on that. All right. So you told us that it was here in Muncie that the sexual assaults began. Is that correct? It's when the massages began. Can you give us a name of one of the eyewitnesses for any of these sexual assaults that occurred in that house so we can bring that person into court to confirm that what you were saying is true? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Can you name an eyewitness who witnessed those sexual assaults so we can believe you? We don't believe you otherwise. We need an eyewitness who actually saw it with their own eyes. Problem is, that never happens because the predator is so good at keeping it a secret and keeping it away from everybody. It just happens that in this household, everyone knew that when Jose was down that hallway, you didn't go down there. So everyone in the house would have known if Jose was engaging in some inappropriate acts with his own sons, but um everyone just knew to stay away and let it happen, I guess. That's what went on in their house. Let's move on. So Mr. Levin says, objection, Your Honor. The witness says eyewitness or people that overruled, says the court. The witness says eyewitness or people that Lyle and I told before our parents died. One eyewitness. There was nobody who would be in that room with my father and I except my father and I. You accused your father of a crime for which there were no witnesses, is that correct? Objection, Your Honor, it's argumentative. I haven't accused him. Wait, says the court. As phrased, it is argumentative. Objection is sustained. The answer is stricken. Mr. Khan says there was never a single person around at the time that your father would allegedly assault you in that house. Is that correct? Objection. It's argumentative. Diane Vandermolen. Overruled. Your answer. Witness says Diane, his cousin, Diane Vandermolen, was in that house. She was at one point told by my mother. Andy Cano slept over at my house. I told him. Mr. Khan says, I'll make a motion to strike as non-responsive. Objection, Your Honor, says Mr. Levin. The witness is entitled to answer the prosecutor's question. The court says it's unresponsive. Let's have the question read back. The last question was read back. The court says, all right, the answer is stricken as non-responsive. Mr. Khan says, was there? Mr. Levin says, I respectfully object. Court says, it's impossible to separate it. You can ask him the question again. Mr. Khan says, was there ever any eyewitness around at the time that your father would allegedly assault you in the Muncie home? There were people that lived inside the home, my brother, my mother, my cousin sometimes, but in terms of being in the bedroom at that point, nobody was ever in my bedroom when my father came in and talked to me about anything. Directing your attention to the Princeton Junction home, you told us that your father would sexually assault you there too. Is that correct? Yes. Can you give us the name of one eyewitness who was present for any of those sexual assaults that took place in that home? That saw him physically massaging me in my bedroom? That's what I mean by eyewitness. No. I believe that the jury then saw a picture of the Princeton, New Jersey home. Was your testimony, the Pennington home, was it your testimony that your father sexually assaulted you in that home? He did. Can you give us the name of one eyewitness who saw any of the sexual assaults that took place in that home? There are none. There would be none. You then moved to the Princeton estate near New Jersey, Mountain Avenue home. Yes. Can you give us the name of one of the eyewitnesses who saw any of the sexual assaults that took place in that home? I don't really remember the sex in Princeton. I remember kneeling on the wooden floor, but my dad would have me kneel on the wooden floor as punishment in the corner sometimes, so I can't distinguish that anything actually happened in that home. We lived there for 6 months. Can you give us the name of any eyewitness to any of the incidents that took place in the Princeton estate home? Objection with respect to. The witness says, with the sex, no. Mr. Khan says, you then moved to Calabasas. Is that correct? Yes, I did. Did your father sexually assault you there? He did. Can you give us the name of one eyewitness of any of the sexual assaults that took place in your home? There would be none. There are none. So your father assaulted you in the Beverly Hills home? He did. Can you give us the name of one eyewitness to any of the sexual assaults that took place in that home? No. Now, you said that your father used to slap you and hit you for crying or for not doing well in sports. Is that correct? He did. And when he would slap you and hit you, did he leave bruises on your body? Sometimes he did. Where would you have those bruises? The back of my thighs, my butt sometimes, and sometimes I got a fat lip. How often would your father slap you and hit you? Sometimes in my ribs, if he would throw me against furniture or stuff. Well, how often would your father slap and hit you? Whenever he felt like it. Well, how often is that? I don't know. I was constantly in fear of that when I was home with him, about him just going into exploding and doing that. It wouldn't happen every week. We would go for a month at a time and it wouldn't. So would you say approximately once a month he would slap you or hit you? It would be almost impossible to give you an approximation whenever he wanted to do it. I didn't expect it once a month. I thought it might happen any day he was home, and so I was careful not to do anything wrong in front of him, at least that he would consider wrong. It would be almost impossible to give you an approximation of an average amount. Sometimes he would do it every hour or every week for a month. Sometimes it wouldn't happen for 2 months. It would just depend. And your father also encouraged you to join sports teams. Is that correct? I don't remember ever being active in sports. And you were on teams, weren't you? Yes. You were on swimming teams? I quit swimming when I was 11. You swam from what age? Age of 3 to 11. And you were on swimming teams from what ages? He just answered the question, Your Honor. Overruled. I was on swim teams from 8 to maybe 9, 10, and part of my 11th year. And after you finished swimming, you got into soccer. No, I would swim only part-time of the year, and I would play soccer part-time of the year. I would play once a week with the kids on the field on the weekends and outside, or I'm sorry, and once or twice on the weekdays. And what ages did you play soccer? You mean on a team or a kickball with my dad? On a team. 8, 9, 10, 11. I can't be certain right here, right in there. And you played tennis between what ages? I have memories of when I would be out on the tennis court and I would have to hold the racket with two hands. I was like 4 or 5 up until I was 18. And you were on tennis teams at what age? I was on the high school teams in ninth grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade, and 12th grade. So all 4 years. And when you would play soccer and tennis, you would wear shorts. Yes, sometimes it was cold, so you would wear sweats. And when you would swim, you would wear swimming trunks. Is that correct? Yes. And you would change in locker rooms for both of those activities? Generally, I changed in the car because we were usually either late or on the go. I usually didn't change in the locker room. And when you would go swimming, your would your bruises be visible to everyone to see how often your father was beating you? Sometimes my bruises were visible to see, and sometimes they were on my butt and they were not visible to see. So were there this um attorney just keeps trying. But I'm glad he's moved on from the you're trying to get sympathy part, but I don't know. I just feel like there's so much. I mean, he's doing a good job, I guess, for the state, if you want to call it that, but I feel like he's also overkilling some of these points that he's trying to make. The witness says, so we're there, and then, oh no, sorry, the attorney says, so we're there. He was going to ask a question, and then the witness continues, I remember times when I was bruised and my father wouldn't let me go to the swimming pool because of it, but just an occurrence in my life. Would your teachers then come up and ask you how you received those bruises to your body? No, just let it happen. So there are no efforts of your teachers noting bruises to your body. I don't know if there are reports or not. Certainly, there are many people that saw bruises and saw us get punched and hit by my father. There are many people who saw you get punched and hit by your father? Just from the people that testified last trial, but I wouldn't have been able to name a single person before the last trial. Well, who was present at the time your father would punch you and hit you? I know that when I was my brother was 5, Peter Kano saw my father. I'm not asking you about your brother, I'm asking about you. Me specifically? That's what I'm asking. I know that Alan Anderson was in the home and would hear us get hit by the belt. Oh, hear us get hit by the belt. I'm not asking you what Alan Anderson heard. My question is, Mr. Menendez, who saw your father hit you? I believe that swimming teachers saw it, or I really don't know. You can't think of a name of a single witness who ever saw your father physically strike you. It's just not the kind of thing that would happen that outside in front of people, I would get struck or else social services would have been called and this would have been settled many years ago. But they weren't called. Is that correct? No, they were not called. And you're saying that the reason why they weren't called is because no one ever reported these bruises. Is that correct? Objection calls for speculation. The witness says, I don't know why they never sustained. Objection is sustained. The answer is stricken. Mr. Khan says, like the allegations of sexual assault, this is an allegation against your parents that occurred behind closed doors and you cannot provide a single eyewitness. Is that correct? Objection, argumentative, Your Honor. The court says sustained. Mr. Khan says, can you give us the name of any eyewitness, who saw your father slap you? I don't know who saw my father slap me and who didn't. It would be unusual for someone to have seen. Mr. Khan says, I would object at this point. It's not responsive. The question has been answered. The court says, right. The witness says, I can't give you a name. The court says, okay, the answer is that he can't. Next question, please. Mr. Khan says, can you give us the name of a single eyewitness who saw your father punch you? Me and not my brother? The question is about you, Mr. Menendez. No, I can't give you a name. Now, did your father continue to slap you and punch you after you were 18 years old? Yes. How often did he slap you and punch you after you were 18? Much less frequently. How often was that? Only when he was very angry over an incident that would occur once every few months. And I take it there are no eyewitnesses that you can tell us about who can verify that your father used to slap you or punch you after the age of 18. Is that correct? Objection, argumentative. Court says, well, using the word verified, it is argumentative. Court says, or sorry, Mr. Khan says, are there any eyewitnesses to your father slapping you or punching you or hitting you after you were 18 years old? The witness says, there's certainly hundreds of at least 60 to 70 eyewitnesses that could testify to the honor, uh, not honor, to the horror of the house. Totally different words. Horror of the house. Mr. Khan says, objection, motion to strike, non-responsive. Mr. Levin says, objection, Your Honor. Court says sustained. The answer is stricken. This judge is ridiculous, as well as the prosecution. The witness says specifically, excuse me. The witness says specifically hitting, punching, or slapping. I cannot know. Mr. Khan says you never received any medical treatment for any slapping or punching that your father would inflict upon your body, did you? Objection. There's an objection, says Mr. Levin. The witness says, I was not taken to, and Mr. Levin says, the defense was not allowed to go into this. Court says, wait, let's not argue it. Mr. Levin says, it's beyond the scope. The court says, overruled. The witness says, I was not taken to doctors for injuries like that. Only serious injuries, certainly not bruises. There are different times when I perhaps should have been taken. Mr. Khan says, I'm going to object. Mr. Levin says, objection, Your Honor. The witness should be allowed to finish the question. The court says, let him finish the answer. The witness says, I'm finished. Mr. Khan says, now you said that your father used to beat you with the belt as well. Is that correct? He did. Now, are there any eyewitnesses who were present who observed or present observing your father beating you with a belt? Objection, argumentative. The witness says there are. The court says, when you say observing, what do you mean? Mr. Khan says, were you present? Are there any? Can you give us the name of any persons that you saw with his own eyes, with your own eyes, your father beat you with their own eyes? Yeah. I don't know why you said it that way. Can you find someone who has witnessed your father beating you with the belt? You're talking seeing and not hear. I'm talking about seeing. My father would not do these things in front of people. And that's the problem. Abusers don't just put their abuse out there in the open for other people to see. So you're not going to have people coming forward and saying, I saw this, because no one's in the room at those times except Lyle and Erik. And he wouldn't molest you in front of people? Of course not. So we have no way of knowing. Mr. Levin says, objection, Your Honor. He's arguing with the witness, and the witness should be allowed. Court says the nature of the inquiry is argumentative. Ask the next question in a non-argumentative fashion. Mr. Khan says, at what ages would your father beat you with a belt? Up until I was 14, before I moved to Princeton. And he no longer struck you with a belt after the age of 14? Right. And did the belt leave welts on your skin? Yes, at times it would. I remember it would make my butt very sore. What parts of your body would you have the welts on? My butt, my back of my thighs, sometimes my upper back. I mean lower back, but upper buttocks. And would teachers ask you how you received welts to the back of your thighs? They wouldn't see them. They wouldn't see. Why? Oh, why wouldn't they see these welts? Because I would be dressed. And would tennis coaches or soccer coaches or any of the students that you swam with ask you about the welts on your back of your thighs? My swimming teachers and my soccer teachers knew not to talk to my parents about anything. There was no question that they must have seen, and they certainly, I would object as non-responsive. Saw a lot of other things, says the witness. Mr. Khan says, I would object as Mr. Levin says, the witness should be allowed to answer the prosecutor's question. Court says he has, but the answer is non-responsive, so the answer is stricken. Again, who's counting? Because we've got so many times where he overrules defense's objections here. Mr. Khan says, let me ask the question, Mr. Menendez, once again, and I ask you to focus on the question that I'm asking. Did any of your tennis coaches or teachers or students at school question you regarding the welts to the back of your thighs? I don't remember. You cannot give us the name of a single person who questioned you about welts to the back of your thighs? Objection, argumentative. Overruled. I'm sure teachers did. I'm sure soccer teachers did. Objection, motion to strike is non-responsive, but I cannot give you a specific name of people that saw the welts. Court says overruled will stand. Mr. Khan says, now you said that your father even would cut you with a knife, a kitchen knife. Is that correct? More scrape me. Scrape you? Yes. Well, did he cut you or scrape you? He would draw blood. He would scrape me. And this is a man that you wanted to write a book about? I loved my father, and I will always love my father. And pain is something that he taught me to work through. And when he did that with a knife, it was during pain sessions, and it had no bearing on the fact that I loved him. You're right. There are sometimes when I hated him and wanted him to die. I was in pain and I was hurt as a child, but overall, I love my father. He was a tremendous figure in my life. Do you want your father to die after you reach the goal of 18, Mr. Menendez? What a ridiculous question. I wanted to go to college and I felt that I would get away when I went to college. There was a time in May when he was in my room and he was having actual sex with me, which I wanted him to die. And I would have tried to shoot him had I had the gun at that time. I hated him for it, and this was not just pain, it was humiliation, and times I did. It was only when he was having sex with you that you wanted him to die? You're asking, I thought you meant at times when I thought I wanted to kill him. I remember when I was 13 and 14 and I knew I wasn't going to be able to get away from the house. I hoped that his plane would crash. You wanted to kill him in May of 89? It flashed through my mind. That was 3 months before you actually killed him. Yes. Is this something that would flash through your mind every time that he would have sex with you? No, not every time. Hatred would flash through my mind, emptiness and hollowness would be inside of me, and I would feel like a body didn't belong to me anymore, and I wanted to stop it any way I could. Sometimes the way I could, I thought about killing him. How often did you think about killing your father, Mr. Menendez, before you finally did kill him in August of 1989? I remember specifically during the act when he was in my room when I was 18 that I thought about it. Is that the only time you can think of? Specifically, yes, it's the only time I could think of. There may be others. And there were other times when, although you did not specifically think of killing him, you wanted him to die. Is that correct? There was, yes, definitely. How often throughout your life, Mr. Menendez, did you want your father to die? When I was 13, I wanted it to end with everything that I was, and I thought about it then and thought about when I was 14. These weren't days, these weren't thoughts that were present in my mind and throughout the days that I lived, just after it would happen in the immediate hours following, or if I thought that he might be coming into my bedroom that night because he was getting back from Europe. I thought maybe he'll die and he won't come into my bedroom tonight. Maybe he'll die and this will never happen again. It was a thought. It was a fantasy because I wanted it to stop and I wanted to end it. And him dying was certainly a way for it to end. When I was 17, I had the same thoughts if he was in my room. So over many years of your life, Mr. Menendez, you wanted your father to die. Is that correct? I think it would be incorrect to paint a broad brush and say from 13 to 17, I wanted to die or wanted my father to die, but for days and hours at a time, yes, I did. And were there times when you were hoping that someone would kill your father? I know I had a discussion with my brother when I was 12, and I thought that, and Lyle expressed to me that he was sorry that there were things happening to me, and that sometimes he had thought about killing dad to stop it from happening too, to me. And so I thought that I should tell Lyle, and I wasn't an ever present thought. Were there times when you were hoping that your mother would kill your father? My father bought, bought my mother, I'm sorry, when my mother bought the rifle and she told me when he was when she was putting in the trunk, I'm going to kill somebody, I thought she might be thinking of Louise or Revenge of My Father. But I was certainly hoping, I admit, I was hoping that she meant my father. So you weren't hoping at any time in 1989 that your mother was going to kill your father? Yes. And so you were wishing him dead at least as far back as 1988. I hated what he did to her a lot of times that in my life I felt responsible for it. And if she killed him, I would be utterly supportive of her. So, as far back as 1 year before you shot your father to death, you wanted your father dead. Is that correct? I wanted to go so far as to say I wanted him dead. But certainly, if my mother was going to kill him, she was my mother and I loved him or I loved her tremendously and it didn't say, "Mom, don't do this." Well, you're right. I did not. Didn't you previously testify that you were reporting or you were hoping that your mother would kill your father? When she brought the rifle in 89, it was a hope I held onto that I held on to tremendously, but it was a hope that did go through my mind. Yes. Did you start the hope that your father would be killed in 88, or did you start to hope that your father would be killed sometimes prior to that? I remember when I was 13 and sitting at home in my bed, I was curled up at night and I knew that he was getting back from Europe or getting back from a long trip, and I suspected strongly, at least I had a great fear that he would enter my room and that he would enter my room that night and demand sex. And I remember curling up in my pillow and saying, I hope his plane crashes and he never gets home. My question is whether, and that was the first time I ever hoped that. My question is regarding your hope that someone would kill him. Did you begin to hope that someone would kill him in 88, or did you begin to hope that someone would kill him prior to 88? I don't think it was a hope that someone particular would kill him. It was more of a wish that sex would stop, and the best way for it to stop would be for me to get away to go to college, or maybe immediately if he died. And when my mom said, I'm going to kill somebody, that's the first time it entered my mind that somebody else might kill him. Are you saying that? Well, let me ask you this. Did you continue to hope throughout 88 after your mother bought the rifle and throughout the first half of 1989 that she would kill your father? I don't think that it stayed in my mind. I knew my mother was no longer really wanting to take her own life. So she didn't buy it to kill herself. I thought that. This was after she had decided not to divorce him, and I don't know. I don't think that it stayed in my mind. So you're saying that this was just a momentary hope when she bought the rifle. You hoped that she would kill the father, and then after that, you no longer hoped that she would kill your father. Well, it flashed through my mind. I said maybe she's going to kill dad, and a feeling of freedom from sex came over me, and I said, maybe she'll do this, and I just wanted these things to end. Her killing him would be a means to that end, and it flashed through my mind. It didn't stay in my mind, and I wasn't disappointed when a year later she still hadn't done it. It didn't stay in my mind very long. Well, when you saw that your mother was not going to kill your father, did you begin to think about doing it yourself? No. Did you warn your father and tell him that your mother had purchased a rifle and you think that she's going to use it to kill him? I did not warn him, but he certainly expected that he knew that there was a great tension. I remember the summer before she was pressuring him to get the physical for his $5 million life insurance policy, and I felt that one of the reasons he was stalling is because of how much he wanted him to get it. But I wasn't going to say, "Hey, Dad, watch out for Mom," because my love for my mother and uh, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, let me rephrase or restart that. But I wasn't going to say, "Hey, Dad, watch out for Mom," because my love for my mother was 100 times stronger than my love for my father. Now, you said that your father would sometimes scrape you with a knife and draw blood. Is that correct? Yes. And what parts of your body would he hold the knife against and scrape you or draw blood? My thighs. You have scars on your thighs today? I have one scar. I haven't really checked under a microscope to see if I have scars. They weren't uh, they weren't scrapes that needed stitches, if that's what you're asking. So you have one scar. Where is that scar? On the inside of my thigh. I mean, thigh and knee. Can you, or how far above your knee is that scar? It's on the side of my knee, on my lower thigh. Can you show that scar to us? May I approach, Your Honor? Sure. The witness says, this scar. If you can hold it up for the jury to see. The court says, stand up. Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, can the witness be, the court says, can you let out, or can you get it out in the aisle there? The witness says something. I don't know. He shows his legs. By Mr. Khan, the next question by Mr. Khan is, that is the only scar to your body. Objection calls for speculation. Overruled. I don't know if it's the only scar. It's the only scar that needed stitches that didn't get out, that didn't get it. It's the only scar that needed stitches that didn't get them. Mr. Khan says, well, tell us how he did that scar. I don't remember how he did it. How old were you? Either 13 or 14 or early 15. It was serious enough, in your opinion, to need stitches, and you don't recall how he did it to you. I only know that I needed stitches from talking to doctors afterwards who said that should have gotten stitches. That it definitely would be a much smaller scar if I had gotten stitches. But I don't, most of the rough sex I don't have in my mind. I have images, I have scary feelings, and I have tremors about it. I have just pictures in my mind of it. Even as a child, when I was 13, 14, and 15, if I would see scrapes on my legs, I wouldn't know how they got there. I wouldn't remember. Was there a witness, an eyewitness to your father cutting you that with a knife? I can't imagine there would be. Was there ever an eyewitness to any of the occasions in which your father would allegedly use tacks or needles upon your body? Other types of pain training there would be. This type, never. And you said that your father crushed the skull of a rabbit with your brother brought home. Is that correct? He did. Was there an eyewitness to that incident, Mr. Menendez? I don't know if there was. I don't know if Ellen or Diane, who was living in the house at the time. Certainly, I was aware of it. Lyle was aware of it. The rabbit was aware of it. My mother was aware of it. It happened. There was no doubt about that. Great answer. Is there an eyewitness to your knowledge, Mr. Menendez, who was present when your father crushed the skull of a rabbit? Independent from the immediate family? I don't think so. Independent of your brother who's on trial and your mother who is dead. Is that correct? Right. So you said that another time your father broke the neck of a little bird. Is that correct? Yes. Are there any eyewitnesses to that occasion? My grandmother knows about it. Your grandmother was told about it? The maid told my grandmother, and she confronted my father, and he admitted that he did it. Is there an eyewitness to that incident, Mr. Menendez, to your knowledge? My dad snuck downstairs and killed the bird when we were asleep. There are no eyewitnesses to that incident to your knowledge, Mr. Menendez. No. Another time, your mother put blood on the face of your brother, Lyle Menendez. Is that correct? Oh, she had cut herself and she blamed Lyle, so she smeared it and made him wear the blood through dinner. Is there an eyewitness of that incident, Mr. Menendez? I don't know if there is. I don't know if I know that my dad never found out about it. Well, your father's dead, correct? Yes. Are there any living eyewitnesses to the incident, Mr. Menendez? I doubt it. You said another time your mother threw a cake at you and that you had baked. Is that correct? Yes. Is there an eyewitness to that incident, Mr. Menendez? Alive? Yes. No. You said that your mother spent the money that you stole from the residential burglaries. Is that correct? I didn't mean it in those terms. I meant it if I said in those terms, it was a mischaracterization. She spent the physical dollars that were taken but all of the money was replaced. Are there any eyewitnesses to her spending the physical dollars from the burglaries? No. You said that you put cinnamon in your father's coffee to kill the taste of his semen. Is that correct? Yes. And are there eyewitnesses to you doing that, Mr. Menendez? I did it in secret. You said that you used to put lemon on your food to kill the taste. Is that an idea that I had? That it was an idea that I had that I could maybe, as a child, I thought maybe you could overwhelm your taste buds so that you don't taste food anymore, don't taste anything anymore. It was a silly idea. You used to shake on the floor as a result of the abuse that you received from your father. Is that correct? Yes. Are there eyewitnesses to you shaking on the floor in response to such abuse, Mr. Menendez? There are certainly many teachers and many coaches that saw a plethora of bad things that happened inside my family, specifically shaking on the floor. I'm going to make a motion to strike, says Mr. Khan. The witness says, I'm sure there are coaches. Non responsive, says Mr. Khan. The court says, all right. The answer is stricken as non responsive. Re ask the question, please. Mr. Khan says, listen to the question very carefully, Mr. Menendez. Mr. Levin says, object with respect to counsel's admonishment. All right, just ask the question. You indicated that you would sometimes shake on the floor in response to the sexual assault from your father. Is that correct? Yes. Are there any eyewitnesses to you laying on the floor and shaking in response to sexual assaults from your father? I don't know if I did it outside. My coaches would have seen it. Now, you said that your father would push your head underwater when he was swimming with you because he wanted to teach you lung expanding experiences. Is that correct? He would dunk my head under for 20 or 30 seconds until I started grabbing at his hand because I needed air, and he would lift me up and dunk me under. And he would also pull me down in the bottom of the pool as a different exercise and make me fight my way past him to try to get air. And this was in a public pool? This was in a public pool. Okay, was your father ever arrested for abusing you in public? No. There was never a coach, a lifeguard who came up and said, what are you doing to that little boy? If you're seriously suggesting, Mr. Khan, that there are not teachers and coaches that saw these things over my life, that you specifically objected to coming into this courtroom and cannot, as a result, Mr. Khan says, I'm going to object as non-responsive. The court says the objection is sustained. The answer is stricken. Mr. Khan says, I'm asking you specific questions concerning specific things that you testified to, Mr. Menendez. Do you understand that? I know that there are plenty of, well, my question to you, objection, Your Honor. I'm asking the question specifically, or I'm answering the question specifically, says the witness. I know that there are swimming teachers that saw different things. I don't know the specifics of what they saw. Mr. Khan says, is there a single swimming coach that you can point to whoever came up to your father and told your father to stop the behavior based upon the way that he was treating you in the swimming pool? I don't know. I know that there are 10, 15, 20 tennis coaches that did that. I would object as non-responsive, says Mr. Khan. That is absolutely responsive. You're responding. The witness says, but actually, the court says objection sustained. The answer stricken. Ridiculous. This is ridiculous. This court, as Judge Weisberg, right? Bleh. Judge Stanley Weisberg keeps ruling in favor of the prosecution. I think he ruled once so far in favor of the defense. Mr. Khan says, Mr. Menendez, does this dunking your head under the water have anything to do with why you killed him on August the 20th, 1989? I don't know what it has to do with. It wasn't in my mind on August 20th. No. It's just something that makes your father look bad, isn't it? No. It's one of the hundreds of different incidents that made me realize that my father was a dangerous person that made me afraid of him. And he was so dangerous, Mr. Menendez. I don't think that goes to objection, Your Honor. The witness hasn't completed his answer. The witness says, I don't, at least psychologically, I don't understand the particulars of why that goes to why I killed him. I can't answer that. The court says he answered the question. Your next question, please. Mr. Khan says, are you waiting for a mental health expert to come in here and tell this jury something you can't articulate? Objection, argumentative. As phrased, it is argumentative, says the court. Mr. Khan says, and he was so dangerous, Mr. Menendez, that as soon as you reached the age of 18, you left your home. Is that correct? What? No, he didn't. I could never get away from my father, and I certainly would not have attempted to unless the situation was dire. And you were never in a dire situation, Mr. Menendez. I was, and at that time, I didn't. So your father used to cut you with a knife, you tell us, and left a scar on your leg. Is that correct? Yes. And your father was a very dangerous man. Is that correct, what you're telling us? That's how I saw him. And when you were 18 years old, you had a car and you had a license to drive. You didn't leave your home? No, I didn't. Because you had a very comfortable home, didn't you, Mr. Menendez? There was a lot of money in the home, but that's not why I didn't leave. There was a lot of comfort in the home, wasn't there, Mr. Menendez? Yes, that's what I think you mean by, I don't think you mean in terms of love. I think you mean in terms of money. And is that why you stayed? No, that's not why I stayed at all. Was it because of the love that you stayed? I stayed because I wanted to be a part of my dad's life. My dad had taught us that being a Menendez and being his son was one of the greatest things imaginable, and that being a part of my lineage and my grandfather's father and my father's father's father was impressive and was important to me, and I wanted him to love me, and I wanted to be a part of it, and I didn't want to just leave, and I wouldn't have just left. I thought it was going to end when I went to college, and I stayed until that time because my dad gave us all kinds of lessons in life that I thought were valuable. I thought that his ways were the right ways, and I wasn't just going to leave and say, "You know what, Dad, screw you. I can't take it anymore." I wanted to try and make it out. I wanted to stick it out because I didn't want my dad. I just wanted the sex to end. I didn't want to be away from my father as a human being. Well, in addition to the sex, your father was a person who would hold a Rambo knife to your throat and cut your leg with a knife. Is that correct? He held the knife to my throat one time when I disobeyed him. So you wanted a lot more to end than just the sex. You wanted all the other abuse to end as well, didn't you? The cutting me with knives ended before I was 15 years old. Okay. When you were, after you reached the age of 18 years old, Mr. Menendez, didn't you feel that it was more important to get away from your father than to continue to live in the house and hear these stories about the Menendez heritage? When I was 18 years old and about to go to college, I would not live in the house. It was with the sex. It was intolerable, and I would rather have died than to put up with the sex. Yes, it wasn't going to continue one way or the other. Whether I killed myself or not, it wasn't going to end. And so once you realized that it was not going to end when your father told you that you were going to be coming home from UCLA a couple of days a week, you decided that it was then time to leave, didn't you, Mr. Menendez? It flashed through my mind to leave, but at this point, I felt as I was dying inside. My mother came in the room and said, "You're not going anywhere." My dad came in the room and said that I'm not going anywhere. It didn't seriously enter my mind that I could ever get away from my dad to where he wouldn't find me and then kill me. Eventually, I wound up telling my brother, which I hadn't even planned on doing. I was more of a walking dead person at that point. He's a shell of himself. He wasn't really himself anymore. So you're telling us that aside from the situation in which you and your brother got yourselves into, in which your brother had threatened to report the abuse, are you telling us that even if you were to just leave before the situation arose, you felt that your father was going to kill you? I'm not understanding what you're saying. Before my brother confronted my dad on Thursday night? Correct. My brother could leave, but I could not. Had I emotionally, I couldn't. And I don't understand the particulars of that, but I had tried. He would, if I had tried, he would have found me and he would have killed me. There's no doubt about it. What do you mean when you say that you do not understand the particulars of why you would not leave emotionally? Emotionally, I tried to leave when I was 12, and I grew through him telling me that I would never get away from him to accept it as an unconditional belief. How that works in my mind, I don't know. I don't understand a lot of things about myself, about those beliefs that were drilled into me. It's just something that I knew, and leaving was an impossibility to me. Well, do you feel that one of your doctors can explain it better than you, Mr. Menendez? Objection calls for speculation. My doctors overruled, says the court. My doctors have tried to explain to me why that is because of the guilt, because I feel the guilt I feel, or not leaving and getting my brother involved in this to the point where I have destroyed his life. I have tried to understand it. They have tried to explain it to me, and I can intellectually accept it. Emotionally, it's very difficult to accept that I did not run away. You're relying upon those doctors to come into this courtroom and tell the jury about why you would not leave. I don't feel that. Objection, argumentative, Your Honor. Objection sustained. Answer stricken. Okay, so there's two objections that are in the favor of the defense. Mr. Khan says, can you tell us in your own words why you didn't leave after you got to be 18 years old and you had a car and you had a driver's license and you had some money in your pocket? Asked and answered, Your Honor. Overruled, says the court. The witness says, I wish I would have left if I motion to strike. Objection, Your Honor. It is responsive. He means unresponsive. Just answer the question. The witness says, I felt that if I tried to run away, I just felt death. Intellectually, I can say I know he would have found me, and he would have killed me, and he would have. And he would have spent every cent he had to find me and track me down. There's no question about it. Emotionally, I cannot explain why I didn't feel I could not leave. I can't do it. You felt your father was going to kill you just for leaving the home at the age of 18. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying? If I tried to run away and say, Dad, I'll see you next life, it would never have happened. So your father would have killed you. Is that correct? Yes. And you knew that. Is that correct? There's no doubt in my mind. Well, how'd you know that? Because he told me over and over again. Once I tried to run away when I was 12, he told me he would kill me and he would sit me down in the chair and he would put me in front of a mirror and so that I'd slap myself if I said no. He wouldn't kill me. I understand specifically that he would kill me. This was the secret that my father would kill me, would kill over, because this was the secret that would destroy him as a person, and he would never ever let that happen. So this is the one thing that he would kill over. Well, maybe not the one thing. Who knows with Jose, but particularly something that Jose would defend at all costs. Well, didn't you tell us that what your father said was that you were, if you were ever to report this, he was going to kill you? Is that correct? The incident with the mirror happened every week or 3 years, over 3 years of my life. I told you about one incident. There are hundreds of times when I can't even remember a time in my childhood when I was 13 and 15 when I was sitting in front of the mirror answering his questions. Well, my question is, your father told you he would kill you only if you went out and reported the sexual assault. Isn't that true? That is the first time I was in front of the mirror. That's what he said. Okay. Did your father ever tell you when you get to be 18 years old, you still cannot leave the home and have a life on your own because you try, if you try, I'm going to kill you? No, he never said it when I was 18. Did he ever tell you that when you were younger, that when you get to be 18 years old, if you try to leave home and live elsewhere, just like your brother Lyle is doing, I'm going to kill you? Did he ever say that? He told me that if I ever tried to get away from him, he would find me and kill me. Just from getting away from him, is that correct? Well, it was understood between him and I why I was trying to run away. What do you mean? It was understood. It was clear that I was trying to run away from him specifically, and he told me that I would never get away from him. He told you specifically, if you ever left and tried to get away from me, I'll kill you? Many different phrases of those words. Yes. And what ages did he tell you this? When I was 12 and a half, when I first tried to run away, when I was 13, when I was 14, when I was 15. I don't remember him doing it when I was 16. The last time I specifically remember a threat where he would kill me is about the sex when he held the knife to my throat. All right. Well, after you got to be between the ages of 16 and 18, did you ever say to him, Dad, in light of the fact that you let Lyle live on the East Coast away from you, why can't I also live on the East Coast away from you? It just was not the type of thing that I could ever say to my father in challenging his orders or his authority. So you never thought of having that conversation with him. I thought about doing a lot of things. I thought about saying a lot of things to him. I used to think about just screaming as loud as I could when he came into my room, and hopefully he'd run away from me. I used to fantasize about all different types of things I could say and do to get away from him, but when he came into my room, I froze because I don't know, I just did. So you never once thought of having a conversation with him in which you told him, Dad, when I get to be 18, I'm going to go out on my own, just as all other young men do when they get to be 18 years old? I just assumed that when I went to college is when I would get away from him. So you just assumed without even bothering to have that conversation with your father. Well, I know from conversations before that I would live on campus, so I knew when I lived as it was my burning candle that I would get away from him when I went to college. Did you ever say to him, Dad, I've been having this impression in my mind all of these years that if I try to leave the home when I get to be 18, you're going to kill me? Did you ever have that conversation with him? Certainly not. Why not? I wasn't brave enough to do it. You never tried? I couldn't do it. You were just in this constant fear of death, that he might try to kill you if you tried to leave the house. Is that correct? It wasn't a constant fear of death. Whenever he was in my room, I felt death. When I thought about running away, I couldn't imagine it. I could not imagine getting away from my father. And you were aware that there are young people under the age of 18 throughout the country who leave home every day and run away to get away from abusive homes. They write letters to me. Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation. The court says objection sustained, the answer stricken. Mr. Levin says, I withdraw the objection. Let the witness answer the question. Mr. Khan says, were you aware? Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, I ask that the witness be allowed to answer the question. The court says he'll re-ask the question. Were you aware when you were 18 years old that there were young people throughout this country who every day, much younger than 18, decide to leave abusive homes and just get up and go? I get letters from people and kids who say that to me. Objection, non-responsive. Your Honor, that's precisely in answer to his question, says Mr. Levin. The court says the question is related to when he was 18 years old. Mr. Khan says, yes, Your Honor. The witness says, yeah, I'm sorry. No, I don't know if I was aware. I certainly did not believe that my father was like their father in terms of my father or their father. I can't say that I knew that. I can't. He didn't know that other kids were treated this way in the world. I can't say that I would have made that it would have made a difference even if I did. That's a good point. Mr. Khan says, so you were not aware of that then? I may have been. It's too many years later and what I know now compared to what I know then, it's getting mixed up. So are you saying that you were at 18 years old, you were living in this terrible abusive situation when you were not, and you don't know if you were aware of the fact that there are people younger than 18 who leave their homes and are protected from their father? I could not imagine it being so. I cannot imagine that if I would have gone to the shelter, my father would not have come over and found me. It's not possible. Well, what would you do? What would you do? Did you only contemplate situations in which you would go to a shelter and say, my name is Erik Menendez and I live at 722 North Elm? Objection calls for speculation. The witness says, certainly, I could never. The court says it's argumentative as phrased, objection sustained, the answer stricken. Mr. Khan says, when you thought about leaving the home, did you only contemplate situations in which you would go someplace and identify yourself to some authorities and give a home address? Mr. Levin says, objection, argumentative. The court says, overruled. The witness says, I didn't seriously believe I could ever get away. I didn't. Clearly, I could. If I did try to run away, I could never, ever use my name to where it would be put onto a computer because my father would immediately locate me. I would have had to change my entire identity and always be on the lookout when I went to sleep, thinking he would come into my room that night because he would find me at that time. I knew that there would be investigators from all over the country looking for me. My father had millions of dollars to locate me, and I could not imagine that he would not find me. It is impossible for me to believe. How old were you when you got your driver's license? 16. How old were you when you got your first car? 16. Paid for by your father? Yes. And did you have access to money or credit cards after you got to be 16 years old? Objection, compound. The witness says, I never had credit cards or checking or anything like that. They gave me money. How much did they give you? At some point, I was put on an allowance, but even above the allowance, if I needed money to go to the movies or if I told my mom I'm going out, and sort of hinted that it was a girl, she'd give me plenty of money to do that. Did they give you $180 a month? I think when I was 18, that was what the set amount was, my official allowance. Did you have money lying all over the house that you could just pick up and take anytime you wanted? There was money all over the house. Money was no shortage. There was no shortage of cash. Okay, so you had all the cash that you wanted. I never was in need. Well, how much cash was lying around the house? My mom would have hundreds of dollars in her purse. To give me money. My brother had money in his guest house. In her room, there would be $100 laying on the dresser here, or $50 on my dad's. There was just in the kitchen, there was cash. It just depended on the day or the week or who was home. and who wasn't. Well, if you wanted to pick up all of the loose cash in the house, how much do you think that you'd be able to pick up on any given day? Several $100s. Is that all? I never sought out and specifically went through the dollars of their bedrooms to look for it, but there were definitely on any given day, I could get over $100, 200, 300. Did you testify that ending the sex was the most important thing in your life? It was the most important thing in my life. Did you think about joining the military to get away from your father? Giving my name to military? Yes, and letting your father take on the U.S. Army. He wouldn't have taken on the U.S. Army. Laughter in the audience. The court says, okay, let's be quiet in the audience, he says. The witness says, but he would have found me, and that would have been the end of it. And what would have happened when your father found you in the U.S. Army? I never seriously entertained the possibility of entering the U.S. Army to where he could instantly find me in getting away from my father. I just assumed he would find me, he would bring me back, and I would die. I couldn't. That's not running away. When I mean running away, I mean running away in a way where he cannot find me, to contemplate running away where he cannot find me and my name is known to everyone. I never contemplated that because I knew that was ridiculous. Why would it be ridiculous for you to join the military to get away from the sexual abuse if ending the sexual abuse was the most important thing in your life? Because if you knew my father, Mr. Levin says, it's argumentative, Your Honor. The witness says, and you had a single conversation with him, you would realize that this man would do anything to keep this secret quiet. And you would realize that he doesn't consider the U.S. Army someone that's going to interfere with his family. He just wouldn't. The police would never interfere with his family. He didn't believe in bringing the police into domestic problems. He didn't even really believe in going outside of the house for anything. It was a family closed unit. That's how he saw things. That's how I saw things, and the idea of going to the army or military it's just insane if you know my father. Insane for what reason? To think that my father is going to be threatened by the military or that he is going to be impeded by the military when his son is in the military. Nothing was going to stand in the way between my father and I. Nothing. You're saying that you believe that if you were to join the military, your father would still hunt you down and kill you, even if you told him, Dad, I'm just joining the military like all 18-year-olds do. I'm not going to tell the story about what you used to do to me in my bedroom. Objection, Your Honor. Objection. It's compound, it's complex, has all kinds of information in there that the witness, it assumes facts, not in evidence, overruled, it's sustained, rather. Next question. Mr. Khan says, did you ever consider joining the military and telling your father that you were not joining the military to reveal the family secret? You were joining the military only because you wanted to get away from him and you were going to keep your mouth shut. I never seriously entertained that possibility. Never. And that is because you felt that your father would even hunt you down if you joined the army and kill you. Is that correct? I knew that if I tried to run away, your word hunt is a good one. He would be hunting me. And eventually, he would find me and I would die. There's no question about it. Perhaps this would be a good time, Your Honor. The court says, if we can go a few more minutes here. Mr. Khan says, you said that your mother and father teamed up to frighten you in the basement. Is that correct? I don't know if I used those words. I just related an incident that happened when I was in the North Mill house. Okay, and there are no witnesses to the time that your parents teamed up in the basement to frighten you, are there? There's certainly plenty of witnesses that know. Objection, non-responsive. The witness says that I was frightened by them. The court says sustained. The answer stricken. The witness says that particular incident, no one was around. No one was around. He says. Mr. Khan says, and what does that incident, the time that they frightened you in the basement, have to do with why you shot them to death on August 20th? I have no idea. Would you agree it has none? Objection calls for speculation. Court says goes to the state of mind. Your answer. The witness says, in my mind, it didn't have anything to do with it. What other people, such as my attorneys or my psychiatrist, think I don't know. They ask me questions that I don't understand why they're asking me. I just answer it to the best I can. You say that one time your father frightened you with a green mask. Is that correct? They put a green mask in the closet so that I opened it, and when I opened the door, it would fall on me. What does that have to do with why you killed your father? Same objection, says Mr. Levin. Uh, Calls for speculation. The court says, all right, it goes to his state of mind as to what he thinks his opinion. Witness says, I don't know. Mr. Khan says, can you think of any way that that has a bearing upon your state of mind at the time that you shot your parents to death? It's hard to explain because I don't know all the reasons why I did it. And to me, it seems like just another insignificant time when my parents scared the hell out of me. It happened all the time, and I could give 100 instances, and why they picked that one, I don't know. You said that your mother would put you in cold water to awaken you from nightmares. Is that correct? Yes, she would do that. Are there any eyewitnesses to her doing that? I don't know. I'd be screaming in the middle of the night and she'd put me under cold water. I don't know who was around. You cannot give us the name of a single eyewitness. Is that correct? Maybe. The only possibility I can think of is Diane. She was living in the house for some period of time, but I don't even know if she can. I don't know. What does that have to do with why you shot your mother to death on August 20th? My nightmares? No, your mother putting you in cold water. The only significance I see is it's the way she awakened me out of the nightmares. I don't know how that fits into it. You said that your mother used to put you in a closet to discipline you, to discipline me, or to remove the environment so that I could work on my school papers. And there was a light in the closet so you could do your homework? Yes. And you said that you would remain in the closet. You said your mother used to do this to you up until as late as 15 years old. Up until I moved to Princeton. And you're saying that all the ages of 13, 14, and 15, your mother would put you in a closet and tell you to stay there and leave the house. And as a teenager, you would remain inside that closet? Absolutely. And you told us that to portray yourself as a compliant person. Is that correct? I told it because I was asked. I don't know. I told it because it's something that happened in my life, and Mr. Levin felt that it was, I guess, significant, and I answered the question. You were not very compliant at the age of 17 when you were getting residential burglaries, were you? Objection, argumentative, overruled. I don't know why I did those burglaries. It's foolish, and I don't know why I did them. What do you mean compliant? I don't know what you mean by that. Mr. Khan says, when you say you don't know why you did the burglaries, what reason did you give yourself at the age of 17 for committing two residential burglaries of the homes of your friends? Well, it didn't start out as me wanting to commit a burglary. It started out with a friend of mine looking for some keys to a friend of mine's van so that we could move it, and we stumbled upon something which led to something else, and I agree it was a bad thing to do, but I didn't need money. I don't know why I did it. What do you mean it didn't start out as a residential burglary? It ended up as a residential burglary, didn't it? Your Honor, objection. This is factual. It's argumentative as phrased, says the court. Mr. Levin says it's also factually inaccurate and counsel knows it. The court says, let's not argue. He's asking questions, the witness is answering. Overruled. Mr. Khan says, what reason did you finally give yourself for committing residential burglaries when you were 17? I've never been able to give a reason to myself why I did it. I haven't. I've talked to all of the different psychiatrists about why I would do such a thing, and they gave me reasons, but I can't accept a reason because I don't know why I did it. It seems childish to me, and there's no motivation I can point to of why I did it. And isn't that one of the reasons why your father began to speak about cutting you out of the will? He never told me that was one of the reasons, but it probably had something to do with it. I know that it had to do with the tennis and probably that and a combination of the factors where he just said, "You know what? You're out of the will." Well, it's your opinion that the burglaries was one of the reasons why ultimately your father began to tell you that he was going to cut you out of the will. Isn't that correct? Yes. And in fact, you previously described the burglaries as perhaps the straw that that finally broke the camel's back, didn't you? Objection, Your Honor. The witness says it may have been the straw that broke the camel's back. I know that he was extremely upset and angry that I was ranked 70 in California that year, and I fractured my ankle and my ranking went way back, and the burglaries on top of it. I think it may have just gotten to the point where he said, "You're disappointing me. You're a failure. You're out of the will." Court says, "What was your objection?" "Withdrawn," says Levin. Mr. Khan says, "Okay." Now, you testified to some photographs that you were shown by the attorney. Do you recall those? Mr. Levin says, "Objection, Your Honor. With respect to what photographs counsel's referring to?" Court says, "Sustained. It's ambiguous." Mr. Khan says, "Let me show you what's been marked as 352A. Is that one of the photographs that you identified here in court?" "Yes." Now, you said that your father would take photographs of you in the nude? He would. And are there any eyewitnesses to your father taking photographs of you in the nude? Certainly, there would never be a witness where he made me pose in specific positions for him and he would take photographs of me naked. That would never occur. Photographs like this where I don't know if he had Lyle pose or what was going on with this one, but it would be difficult for me to imagine that there would be any more than one, and I don't know if there are any. So there is not a single witness to your father taking a photograph of you in the nude. Is that correct? I can't say that there are or not. I'm not aware of them. And you cannot give us a name of any witness. Is that correct? No, I cannot do that. Now, that particular photograph that I just showed you, I believe you testified that that is your brother, Lyle Menendez? Yes. And how do you know that? Because it's not me, and unless my father was taking pictures of other children naked, it's my brother. You don't know who took that picture, that particular photograph, do you? I didn't take it, and it never occurred to me that could be my mother. So you don't know where these particular photographs that were shown to you by your counsel, you have no personal knowledge of where they were recovered from, do you? I know that they were recovered from personal knowledge. Oh, wait, sorry. I know that they were recovered from, and then the attorney says, personal knowledge. He says, the boxes at my home. Personal knowledge means I saw them? Yes. No, I wasn't there. You don't know whether these were recovered from your home or you don't know whether these were given to your attorneys by a relative, do you? Well, I trust my attorneys would tell me they got them from my home. You have no personal knowledge of where these photographs were recovered from, do you? Objection, it's argumentative. When you say personal knowledge, says the court, you're asking, did he actually see them recovered? Mr. Khan says, yes. Did you see those photographs recovered, Mr. Menendez? No. Okay, and 356 is a group of negatives. Have you had an opportunity to look at these negatives, Mr. Menendez? Yes. Okay. And do you know that in the group of negatives, Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, I would object to those negatives being punctured with. Mr. Khan says, I'm not going to puncture the material. The court says there's no reason to put a negative up at this point since it can't be seen. Mr. Khan says, this particular negative, let me show you this. This particular strip of negatives is a strip of 4 negatives. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, and do you recognize the first photograph in that strip of negatives as being this photograph 222? Yes, it is. Ms. Abrams says, Your Honor, how late? Mr. Khan says, and this picture of what you say is photograph of perhaps your brother Lyle Menendez is the second photograph in this strip of negatives. Is that correct? Well, I believe it's Lyle Menendez. Court says you have to speak up. I believe that it is Lyle. How do you know that that is Lyle other than the fact that it's not you? I think he identified it at the last trial because on his hand and the imprint of his hand coming across his body. Do you see a scar on that photograph that you recognize? I'm not talking about a scar. I'm talking if you were to take a look at his hand and match it up to the photograph, it's pretty obvious that it's Lyle. And you think that Lyle's hand is indistinguishable from the hand in this picture? Is that correct? Aside from the fact that he was 12 or 18 years younger, um, it's I personally cannot say that that's Lyle, if that's what you're asking. Ms. Amerson says, Your Honor, how long is this court going to go? A few more minutes. The witness says, but it is the number 2 photograph. Mr. Khan says, Your Honor, I have another photograph if we can mark this as the next in order. The court says, show it to counsel. All right, we're at 371. Mr. Khan says, that is a photograph of, I believe, the defendant. The court says, you don't have to describe it. What was it before in the previous proceeding? Mr. Khan says 371. The court says, what is it? What was it before? What was the exhibit before? It was previously 224. Okay. Mr. Khan says, showing you 371, is this a photograph of what appears to be a print of the third image in that group of negatives? Yes, it does. And those negatives are numbered sequentially, aren't they? Yes, they're in 5, 6, 7, 8 sequential numbers. And showing you, my dogs are playing and they're getting really aggressive. And showing you 372, does that appear to be the last photograph? Yes. Now showing you, directing your attention to the first photograph in the strip of negatives. Do you see your father in that photograph? If I could see it closer, I'll bring it to you. Yes, I do. So you know your father didn't take that. Whoops. Sorry, the dogs are playing. I'll be right back. Okay, they quieted down, but I don't think he's stopping. He's just pausing for a bit, but we'll see. Okay, it says, if I could, he has to see it closer. He says, I'll bring it to you. Yes, I do. So you know your father didn't take that photograph, is that correct? So Jose is in a photograph. And then he says clearly, now can you tell us what this is a photograph of? I have no idea what this is a photograph of. And we're back. He's settling down a little bit. All right, so now can you tell us what this is a photograph of? I have no idea what that is a photograph of. Well, does it look like the bottom of the door touching the carpet? Objection, Your Honor, says Mr. Levin. The witness says either that or it looks like objection. The witness would be speculating, says Mr. Levin. The witness says it looks like a post to me. Mr. Khan says it looks like what? It could be a door. I think it's a post because of the shadow you're looking across it. Now, you saw your father hold a camera on occasion, didn't you? When he was taking photographs of me, he was holding a camera. And did he always hold it up straight, like adults do? Hold it up properly to their face? Objection calls for speculation what is proper and what all adults do. Do you understand the question? I do. I don't know. I wouldn't know. When he was taking photographs of me, they were straight. And he appeared to be able to operate a camera properly, is that correct? Calls for speculation. Overruled. He wasn't a very good person with electronics, but I mean, a camera is very simple to use, so I can imagine he wouldn't be able to use it. He wouldn't be able to use it properly. Are you saying that you think that your father took that photograph of the door, Mr. Menendez? I know he took the photograph of me, of the one before it. The post, I have no idea who took that. You remember him taking that photograph of you, Mr. Menendez? It's one of the things that he would do is wake me up and take pictures. I remember when I was a child. So, are you telling us that you objection, Your Honor? The witness hasn't finished his answer. The court says yes. The witness continues. He would wake me up with ice water and take pictures to see my reactions. Those types of things happened. Are you telling us that you specifically recall your father taking that photograph of you, Mr. Menendez? No, what I recall is that I don't remember anyone else doing it, but that photograph, I was 6 years old. I can't say that particular one, but I don't remember anyone else doing that type of thing. So you don't know who took this photograph of you, is that correct, Mr. Menendez? Yes. And you know he didn't take the first photograph, is that correct? Right. And you know that your father was able to operate a camera, is that correct? Right. Did you ever see children playing with a camera, Mr. Menendez? Objection, irrelevant. Overruled, says the court. I don't remember seeing children playing with a camera. I'm sure they did. Mr. Khan says, at any of those birthday parties at your home, did you ever see any of the children playing with cameras? I don't have any memory of it. No. So they're trying to make it seem like the children took naked pictures of themselves. That's what the state is trying to imply here. And screw them for that, because that's just disgusting. We know that the parents took naked pictures of them. And did your brother have access to the cameras? Objection, vague to time. Sustained. When you were 6 years old, did you have access to the cameras? I don't know. I don't remember. I don't remember where the cameras were kept. Do you recall how old your brother Lyle was the first time he ever got his hands on a camera, to your knowledge? Objection, irrelevant, and overruled. I can't remember seeing Lyle take photographs. I can't tell you when the first time was that he got his hands on one. Your parents gave you lots of gifts, didn't they? You mean at Christmas and so on? Yes. Yes. And did your brother or you ever receive a camera as a present? No. Court says, okay, if it's a good point, we'll take our break. Mr. Khan says, yes. Court says, we'll be in recess until 1:30, 1:45, depending on when the jury is back from its lunch break. Don't discuss the matter with anyone. Don't form any final opinions about the matter. We'll see you back here after lunch. We'll ask counsel to return at 1:30. Ms. Abramson says, we may be a few minutes later because we're trying to get this pleading filed in court. The court says, okay. Ms. Abramson says, thank you. 12:17, the recess is taken. And that's where we're going to end for today. We will pick up for the second half of the day in the next episode. So far, I haven't really gotten a lot from this cross-examination by Mr. Khan. He really just seems to think that Erik's faking or implying that he's faking all this stuff on the stand or lying about the stuff with his dad just to get out of trouble or whatever. That whole line of questioning, like you're just looking for sympathy from the jury, aren't you? That should have never been allowed. None of that should have been allowed in, but here we are. So we will pick up next time at the same spot. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye now. That's the end of this Trial Transcripts Exposed. Thanks for following along with me. Like if you want more, subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments below. See you next time.